I'm going to go ahead and call the study session to order. First up, we have time for public comment. So I'll invite anyone up to make public comment. And seeing none, we'll close the public comment period. Next, we have a roundtable discussion amongst council members. Council, did anybody have anything they'd like to discuss this evening?
Just quickly, a few snowstorms ago, we had some issues with the downtown getting plowed, and we brought that up at our last meeting. And I texted Joel, but the last couple, our city folks were out there, got the streets cleared. It looked great. It looked like we were open for business. Yeah, it was nice. So appreciate that hard work and that response.
Thanks, Roger. Just to piggyback off that, what are the boundaries that Kronk is doing for like the sidewalks? Thanks, Doug.
Water Street and 2nd Street, 8th Street, up Hubbard, Brady, Locust, Trowbridge, and from the new parking lot south.
Yep.
Okay.
We had one issue where, for some reason, the sidewalk in front of Minnie's wasn't done, and then the area in front of the restrooms weren't done. They did all the other areas.
Oh, yeah.
It's just they didn't circle back, just that little stretch in front of Minnie's. The owner reached out to me via voicemail and email, but we took care of that immediately. So we had just one oversight with him most recently.
Okay.
This is the last, just for your information, last winter that we're under contract with Kronk Services. We're gonna bid it out again this summer. We've already been approached by another local landscaping company that would like to bid on it when it's bid out, which is good news considering we did a cemetery bid like 3 times and got no bids. So it's good to hear someone wants to, take on work.
The reason for my question is I did hear from a resident that we have another resident who's been snow blowing the pathway across the bridge because that's not getting done. So I'm not sure who that falls to.
That would not be part of Kronk Services.
Okay. And there's another one too. So we've had a couple residents that have been out. I know somebody took their snow blower over there to get that done.
Is that big enough for our can our Ventrac go on that boardwalk part?
I had heard it was no.
Yeah, we're gonna wanna check the weight limit. I mean, cause we have a Ventrac, a Bobcat, and a John Deere tractor that we use to clear sidewalks. I'm sure it can, but I would like to look, I don't know, to be honest. We need to look into that.
Okay.
That scares me. I don't
Yeah.
want an employee to fall in the river.
No,
is where I was
absolutely
going.
not. But I don't want residents to feel like they have to take care of that section either. So it's awesome. Thank you, Peter, for doing that. And thanks. The other person wanted to stay anonymous, but I did reach out and talk to that individual, and they said it just doesn't seem like it gets done. So they just take their stuff over and do it, which is great that we have that ownership amongst our residents. But Doug, if you could check on that, that would be wonderful. The other area was by Village Market, like those sidewalks over there, because the plows push up all the snow onto the sidewalk paths there. So I see people walking in the road, but I don't know if that's,
On 222? Is where you see the people walking
yeah.
on the road? You say Village Market, the
Yeah.
grocery store?
yeah.
Yeah, because I know 2 years ago, I talked to the store manager to let him know that they can't plow our sidewalks shut. And they stopped it after we shared that with them. And I drove by a few times. I haven't seen those sidewalks plowed shut, but maybe recently they just they fell back in the old ways.
Yeah. But no, I appreciate that, like Roger said, we had some concerns and they got taken care of. So thanks so much to you and your department, Doug and Joel, for taking that to them. Did anyone go ahead, Roger.
Just while we're on that subject, because the other thing that doesn't get plowed is the sidewalk that goes through the alleyway here. Because I walk through there almost every morning, and there's a lot of snow there, and it just never gets touched. And I didn't know if Kronk was supposed to hit that, or
No,
that's not part of their thing.
Kronk doesn't hit that, or,
That's Crom's.
he does the sidewalk between the Regent Theater.
He does part of that.
Across the street here, like between Country Home, yeah, behind, no, across the street.
Oh, okay, next to Country House.
Yeah, next to Country House.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, that whole stretch of sidewalk has never been plowed, as
Okay.
far as I could see.
You're talking about the
Sorry, I meant this alleyway, not the
Give me that
alleyway next to
alleyway,
the
not
region.
that one. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
So it's that sidewalk, okay.
So, yeah, I mean, as long as we're talking about it, this one.
Well, the only other one is area adjacent to grocery outlet, and that parking lot never gets hit. I've gone over it once or twice when I had the snow blower out and just go around the corner from
The
the.
sidewalk part of it?
The sidewalk part of the parking lot. I know it's usually not the first one, and I don't think that's part of Kronk's. The same as the boardwalk behind there that doesn't ever get touched, but it's hard to plow the boardwalks.
So what we'll do is, like I mentioned, it's gonna go out for bid again this summer. So you'll be part of authorizing that bid to go out. You'll see what the map is, where we highlight, and then you can, advise us if there's other places downtown you think should have snow removal as well. I think we pay right now $4,000 a year for snow removal services in the downtown.
Okay. Thank you. Did everybody have a chance to take a look at Safe Harbor's request again? I don't know if anybody had read that.
Yeah, that was dropped off on my desk this morning or this afternoon, so I figured I'd get it to you right away.
Thank you. And I know we've discussed our ARPA funds in the past, but have we had any more requests, Joel?
Nope,
Just,
just
again.
CMH, this one, and the fire district.
okay. Okay. So that will probably be something that we want to figure out how we want to handle those funds but that can be for another time if nobody has taken a look at it or had any other
I would
thoughts.
just say, what's the final rules on the ARPA fund usage? Because we didn't really have that set down when it first was
Yeah,
announced.
the final rules are out there now. Long story short, they're giving us up to $10 million that we can use on government services. So we receive, or will be receiving $525,000. And so our plan, as we discussed during the strategic planning session, is that money we would like to see just put towards government services. I mean, we have some significant capital improvement projects, as you know, some cost increases for tonight's discussion, so priorities is all part of life. And however council wants to, influence those, that's your role.
Well, what I was asking, did they have somewhere where I can go look at what these final rules were? Because we were they said generally it can be here, here, and here, but they really weren't definitive what we could and couldn't use it for, so.
Yeah, do you have access to that final rule document? Yeah,
Yeah, and then
Tracy will email that out to all of council members.
Thanks, Tracy. Just real quick synopsis, is it still like the water sewer broadband type thing, or no?
Yeah.
They did change that? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, they did change it. The big thing is, they said up to $10 million you can use on government services, period. So that is roads, that's recreation, they went all the way up to that.
Well, I'm happy to hear that change, because it was, a bit constrictive as written previously. Anything else for roundtable? No? Okay. We can go ahead and move on down our agenda then. Next up, we have the discussion regarding the City of Allegan's use of facility policy. I had Parker take copies of a couple policies that I had found online. So it looks like we were not the only community that struggled with this. I know Roger and Peter and myself have brought this up a couple times. So we wanted, before we get our budget all figured out here and approved, to decide whether we want to make any changes. So, if anybody wanted to start, absolutely feel free. Otherwise, I can kind of give my thoughts too.
So I did some research as well, just kind of looking to see what other communities had done. And the one thing, the one consistent discount they got that I saw was for residents versus non-residents. That was the thing that I saw kept coming up. I didn't really see, because we typically do it for nonprofits here. And maybe that's just because that's our culture, but that's what I saw. And I don't think we've ever really discussed that a resident might rent, the riverfront stage for a 25% discount than a non-resident. So that might be something to think about, the benefit of being a resident of the city.
Absolutely. Anybody else? I had nonprofit on mine. And I was kind of thinking more of like a little graph almost, like if you answered yes to this, move on down to this next question. But, so my thoughts had been, like, is it registered as a 501c3? If yes, then is the event open to the public? Is it free of charge? And then if it's a fundraising event, is that proceeds being donated somewhere else? And then I was thinking that if utilities are needed, electricity, any of our, city barricades or something, that the individual would still pay for that, but they could get the space for 50 to 100%. But those were just my thoughts. I really like the Colorado Springs. They had like a whole eligibility section, and it says what's not eligible for reduction, and then like what is. So I don't know how we would want to do this as part of our actual application or as a separate, like these are kind of separated. Or is this something that we want to continue talking about even? Okay. Okay.
All right, so, and one of the things I like to say, because nonprofits are who we usually get requests from and who we usually give them to, very often we end up giving it to them for free. So to just have in our fee schedule, 50% reduction for nonprofits, and that's it. So we're still covering costs of staff, we're still covering costs of, but giving them a break, I think is reasonable. I know there were others on council who didn't think that was reasonable, but some of them aren't here anymore.
We had discussed this for the new council members, like in our previous council, and it just didn't get a lot of traction. But even today, as you see on your agenda, we have another request. So this is something that we're seeing very frequently. I don't know that it needs to come before council every time either, or whether if it is part of the application or a separate form, that's something staff could determine if it's very well spelled out.
Is this something that council should hash out, or something that a department like Parks should work on?
Like a committee.
And I had thought about public spaces taking a look at this as well, because that's kind of their wheelhouse. But we set the fee schedule when we approve our budget now, Mike. So I think that's kind of one of the reasons we're involved in the discussion is, and previously, they had to come before council to request a reduction.
Yeah, that's my thoughts. It's mostly if it's a cookie cutter, like, okay, this is our bare standards, you get this fee reduction, so it doesn't have to come before council for every approval. If you're beyond what the requirements are and you're still asking for a fee schedule, that's when you would ask and send a letter and say, hey, could I get a fee reduction, and actually come before us. But if we had set standards, to just say, here's the standards, if you meet it, the staff can approve it. We don't have to come before council every time, except for when you don't meet it, then you're gonna have to ask, and the council can determine what to do then.
I think an interesting case study would be like the tantric event that we waived the fee for, because that was going to be a large event down on the riverfront, and tantric was covering the costs of that. And so I think the reason we considered that waiver was because it was going to support so many people coming into the community. And I think the same was probably true to some degree for the village market request. But those would both be for-profit organizations, but they're putting on community events.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I'm not much for just saying, oh, if you're a nonprofit, you immediately, that's what the qualifier is. A lot of it is whether the event's open to the public, and I've seen that in some of that. It's open to the public, it's a community event, it's an appropriate event, it's a family-friendly event.
That's the Mecklenburg County.
Yeah, the Mecklenburg, and but just to outright just say, well, if you're not 501c3, tough. I don't know if churches fall under 501c3.
Right. And just, I had said too, if no, is there another circumstance,
Well, I think to say, because the majority of the requests, and now that we don't have any policy, they all have to come before council. The majority of them are nonprofits. So if we had something that stated nonprofits ought, just get this is what you get, they don't have to come here anymore. And then if we get Tantric who says, hey, we're putting out a lot of money to bring a lot of people downtown, or Village Market or whoever, then we can look at those on a case-by-case basis. But I think coming up, or if we just said nonprofits don't get any break, like if that was the decision, like at least we have a policy and we don't have to hear every single request that comes up. And we just seems to muddy, because I also don't think we end up being consistent.
No,
'Cause
and that-
sometimes we're in a good
Right,
mood,
and
sometimes we're not in a good mood, because we
And that was
didn't
the
like
thing
the
with-
last thing that was on the
With
agenda.
Tantric, I mean, it was just kind of like a number thrown out.
Yeah.
It was and that's how I felt for the last few, is that it was just, oh, well, we can just do maybe $50 or something. And
Yeah, I don't like that.
there needs to be some sort of a standard.
Yeah, that's not fair.
I think what I saw us falling back on for some of those like more, I guess, nominal costs was we would justify it by like, oh, that's electricity, or oh, these are the services, this is the cost we incurred. And I think there's almost an opportunity in this to say like, I think one of the things that sets better with people is when they can see like, this is why we're charging this. So I almost wonder if there's like a wear and tear kind of fee, or like a park maintenance, like we have to charge you this so that we can have this facility available for everybody, and this will go into a fund. Or aside from that, maybe it just comes down to, this is for electricity, and if you want a waiver on the electricity, you gotta come to council. It just feels like normally, what I've seen in my experience, it's more often that we waive the entire fee and then charge for electricity than we're giving like partial fees.
And the other thing I'd like to add, and I didn't think about this when we were doing like the J.C. Park for free for the Catholic Church.
And they
Our
actually had to
GP.
pay. I mean, I think most
Did we
of,
charge them a little bit
yeah.
to?
So like even the Boy Scouts, we were still charging them 100. We charged Tantric. We charged them, I think, only like $50 or something for the,
We gave them a
for
discount or something, but
the church.
where I was going with that is, we still, the DPW, if they leave it a mess, we still have cleanup, you know, and sometimes that can be expensive.
Well, we could add on a cleaning deposit.
Well, I mean, I'm just throwing that out there, that we gave them a break and then we still have to go in and clean it up, because that's part of it anyway, you know? So,
I would suggest if that was a concern, we just have a cleaning deposit, that this is a deposit, it'll be returned to you as long as you leave the grounds the way you found them. You know, you can't, if you come in and have an event at the stage and you leave it trashed, this is a deposit, it's just to make sure if we have to send out DPW to clean
and
it.
that's just more for staff to keep track of.
Well,
And that's one reason this discussion is so important, is staff isn't sure how to handle these requests. And I want them to have a very clear cut, you know, if we're leaving it up to them to make this decision on whether or not to allow for a reduction or a waiver, then they need to have very clear cut guidelines on what to do. So. Bill, do you have any questions down there or thoughts?
I'm just sitting here thinking, you know, everything costs us money to do. So, I mean, there should always be a fee, no matter what. I don't think there should be any reductions and stuff, other than, I take that back. There should be some reductions, don't take me for that, but, there should always be a fee. The city always incurs something they have to do. Cleanup, police protection, all of that stuff. The city's always got something there. Liabilities, all that stuff. So there should be a fee, no matter what.
So I guess that's a question. Do we ever allow for a full waiver, or do you just offer
As,
up to like a 50% reduction?
as policy-wise, if it's just a policy that we're saying for the staff to follow, it shouldn't be a full reduction to nothing. It would be just a reduction of fee.
Yeah.
Like a lot of these are, where it's like a 50% or a 25%, because if they want it fully waived, I think the council needs to get on board with it to say, okay, we can get on board with that. Or we can say, no, we're just gonna leave it at the 50%. So they would have to then petition us again. And if we can always just turn around, well, we have the fee schedule and we really aren't gonna reduce it. And that just comes down to the council decision, because we could waive whatever we want, whenever we want. We do waive the fees already for the Griswold and for the use of the courthouse and for the library. They don't pay anything to use that facility.
Well, pickleball don't pay either, they just donate.
Yeah, but we have some established policies like that, so this isn't unusual. This is like, if we wanna have a policy, we can have it. It's just, like, I agree with you, Bill, it shouldn't be 100%. It should be,
Yeah.
we're doing a reduction only because this kind of meets what we're trying to promote.
Is there any committees or anything else that has sat down and talked about what they need to do?
As far as,
A group of us saying, okay, this
No.
is your fee? You're just pulling it out of the air or what?
staff puts that together, like the fee schedule, and then that's included in our budget. So I don't know, Tracy, how do you guys come up with those fees? Is it just?
Yes, how did you come up with the money for that?
So, a lot of them are based on just where they were the previous year. When we put the fee schedule together differently, a few years ago, I can't remember what year that was, Joel, we, did a lot of comparisons with other municipalities our size. And some are determined by the, like, cemetery routes.
Yeah, so it's a combination of past practices and looking at communities similar to our size. The problem with looking at other communities, different communities have different values. You know, some are small, super small town, they're like, you know, it's all free. People pay for it through their taxes, so we're just gonna let them use the gazebo because it's there. You talk about costs incurred by staff, you know, it's cleanup stuff for sure. It's also, you know, I don't wanna use the word small, but the amount of time admin is reserving it, lining it up, letting the parks know, letting the police know. You know, there's those additional costs as well that the front desk staff here at City Hall incur. We don't have a dog in the fight from a staff's perspective. We're really looking for, you know, if you want to see a reduction for nonprofits, we can go that route. Before I came here, you used to require, by you, I mean the city, used to require a deposit on some of the reservations. That was something that stopped when I came here, because I was like, that's just additional administrative work. Like you mentioned, Teresa, that I'm like, there's no bang for the buck there. We weren't getting, you know, burned by doing that deposit. It was taking more, you know, the juice wasn't worth the squeeze, in other words. The slides that are on there, you know, the first set were dealt with the parks, because we really have 3 sets of areas that we reserve. So the parks is the first one. Does that button go up? And those are the costs that are in the parks. They've been in the fee schedule. You know, the majority of council saw this in the budget last year. When you go down to the next one, that's, you know, we have a different set of fees for Regent Theater and for the Griswold. So, you know, Peter, you were correct when you said, you know, the library, the court, also the school systems get the Griswold for free. And the next one that goes down that we started recently is, you know, use of, you know, streets and sidewalks. That takes work as well. So I don't know if this is, I'm hesitant to have something like the Public Space Commission, Delora, tackle this, just because we're struggling with the cemetery rules again. And I'm afraid this just might get caught in there. But, you know, you have an asset, you know, a city council subgroup that's talking about assets right now. These are assets. It might be a little bit of mission creep for them, and I'm not a big fan of mission creep, but I don't know if you guys can, you know, come up with something around the table and agree what exactly.
And like looking at these, actually, it almost looks like Colorado Springs and Mecklenburg used each other's because, so I don't.
What I would suggest, because we still have budget coming up, is that we now have this before us and we've discussed it. We don't have to just figure this out tonight, but we need to know when we go to budget. So it'd be nice if everybody just kind of writes down what their idea, where they would say that staff could just make that go or no go on a fee reduction and what that would be. What's the standards that each council member wants, and we can come together and just say, and agree on this is the standard, or we all just say we don't want to do it at all. or, kind of thing, is what I'm thinking, because, yeah, we can sit here, discuss it all night. We still have Streetscape to do and a lot on the schedule tonight. And I think this is a lot of good information. I think we could come back during our budget and even before possibly, and,
Maybe on the 23rd,
yep.
if we have some notes for, oh, speaking of, did we decide that the 23rd works for the goals, this continuation of strategic planning?
About that, did we, is that what we decided?
That
It's
was
next Wednesday.
proposed, yeah. I had said it worked for me, but I don't know if,
That'll work for me.
okay. Did that work for everybody?
I might have to
Thank you
shift
for
something.
asking.
Uh-huh.
I have a scheduled trip actually that week. I'll have to see what I can do for that. Is it gonna be in the evening, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'll see what I have to do. I gotta go to Texas sometime next week, but
Okay,
I'll check with the customer because they've shifted on me like constant, so.
It sounds like.
okay.
What time on the 23rd? Was that the 5:30 one?
Yeah, I think 5:30, give people time to leave work and get here.
It's when I leave work.
I know, but
Just walk on down, Bill.
you're half a block away.
Got a really got a long ways to go.
Council, would you be good with that? Just kind of making some notes and getting back together to discuss that? I see some head nods. Okay, some sure's.
Joel, is there any way that you can send
Yeah,
that to the use of facility policy right now to myself? I would like to see it. I don't know if the rest of us need to see it, but.
yeah, we will send you both the Griswold Regent Theater and one that was in your report, so you'll get 3 documents.
Okay.
We'll probably do it tomorrow
All the
morning.
pricing and everything.
Yeah, with the price and everything.
That's what I would
Yeah,
like.
you guys will get that tomorrow morning if that's okay. That's Parker's gonna try to do it right now during the meeting, which it looks like he might try.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is it the same thing that we got in our packet?
So that one page is correct. That didn't have the Regent Theater or the Griswold.
Okay.
Which are 2 separate reservation forms.
Gotcha.
And
It's in our budget from last year, right?
the fee schedule is,
Yeah,
but not the actual reservation form.
okay, okay.
I mean, just throwing it out, there's a reason that we have separate forms for the different. Yes, Tracy's nodding her head. Okay.
I could let Parker speak about, but yes,
Yeah, I'm
there's,
sorry.
there's, for, the Griswold, there's different check boxes for, if they want all the rooms there, so there's different forms for each place, and some of the
Okay.
parks, that have electric or water, and
Gotcha.
I'll share with everybody what we use currently.
Okay, thanks, Parker. Any other discussion around this, or we'll just reconvene next Wednesday?
That sounds good.
Okay. So moving on down, next up, we have a discussion regarding the downtown streetscape plan. Staff?
Sorry, let me turn my mic on, thank you. We're gonna wanna spend some time going over where we are with the downtown streetscape. The vision is coming into focus here. We have shared this with the DDA as well as the Public Spaces Commission. Tony McGee is in the audience. If there's questions about where we are, how do I, right there? Yeah, and I'll be able to hop over here. Thank you, Parker. Okay. It didn't pop. So what we have is, we have the utility plans, the landscape plans, and the amenities for our downtown streetscape. The construction drawings go from Hubbard, reaching all the way from Walnut, which is down by the library and the Griswold Auditorium, all the way to Water Street, as well as Brady Street, reaching all the way up to Locust, and then Locust all the way to Water Street. That NDI region of interest box you see around the plan right now is for our video streaming right now, and we're gonna figure out how to make that box disappear. This is the high-level plan you're seeing right now. I'm not expecting you to get any detail off this plan right now. We're gonna go in there page by page when Parker gives me the go-ahead that I can jump around on here. All right, thanks, buddy. I will. I won't play with it. I would like to get to my Zoom at least. I can zoom in. Okay.
Which way's better?
Yeah, we're gonna be jumping around a little bit, so if you can just bear with me for a second. We are way. Okay. So this is, top part of the screen right here is Walnut. This is Hubbard. The Griswold's located down here. This is the library. So right now there is parallel parking all in front of the library. We're introducing angled parking in this area, landscaping bump out, trash receptacle, and a bench in this general area. This is a 5-foot wide sidewalk per the city's specifications for sidewalks, and trees on both sides of the street. The other thing you'll see is this, I'm gonna just use the word implementation, but we're install, you'll see a rhythmic pattern of pedestrian lights. And by pedestrian lights, they're 14 feet in height, monopoles, and you'll see what those look like when we get near the end. But that dot is a pedestrian light, that dot's a pedestrian light. It's off-centered because we're dealing with this bump out, but you'll start seeing like right here, they line up, and then right here, they line up, then right there, they line up. So we have a rhythm of trees and lights and trees and lights. So as you come into the downtown off M89, and you just start, it becomes more urban, there's more rhythm to it. We're creating a place of what we're trying to do here.
And do we get the extra room for the angled parking because we're taking out the parallel parking on the far side? Is that where that extra room comes
So
from?
there is no parallel parking on this
Oh, I thought
side
there
right
still- I
here.
thought there was there. So where are we getting the extra room?
We are reducing the width of the travel lanes, so they're not a highway-style travel lane coming
Gotcha.
into the city.
Okay.
We're also shrinking the curb lawn a little bit in this area. This is the entrance to the Emily Green's law office. Again, we're introducing more trees, more landscaping. We got angled parking here in front of Burnett's law office and Emily Green's. This is a curb cut into their parking lot. And then as we continue down Hubbard, this is ATEC right here. This is gonna be a flat curb in this area because we have to preserve access to their single stall garage at ATEC to help people, to recall, what they have there. We are going to move here, and I'm going to try to center this in the region of interest to make life a little bit easier for Ryan back there. This hops across the alleyway that goes down to the riverfront. This is Chestnut Street right here. This is Chestnut Street right here. This is in front of 245 Hubbard. This is John Watts's old law offices. It's now owned by JML. There is a 2-bedroom apartment that is occupied on this side, and then there's a 1-bedroom apartment over here that's available for rent, and then 2 retail spaces that are available for rent. Again, bump outs, more landscaping, more pleasing to the eye. It's a more urban sidewalk down here. We get rid of that curb lawn. We will flatten out, I'm going to use the term flatten out, this grade here, so we don't have the big steps we have going into these 2 apartments here, but we still have a flat grade in front of Tantric, which is down here. There's already angle parking down here, but you can see the rhythm of the street lights again as we work our way down. Placement of trees and landscaping around the base of the trees. We are going to scroll further left to right, This is Hubbard approaching the intersection of Brady, Locust, and Hubbard. This is the walkway to the riverfront. The brick pavers you see here are the same brick pavers we have down on the riverfront. What we're trying to accomplish there is to pull the feel of the riverfront up to Hubbard Street. This is a statement piece of landscaping surrounded by a seating wall around here. And we're gonna have a later discussion, but chairs and tables right here as well. As we come across this turn here, you can see more landscaping here, more landscaping here, and landscaping here. We're trying to really beef up this intersection, again, creating a sense of place. This is Hubbard Street. This is that intersection of Locust, Brady, Hubbard. Again, the street lights that line up going down. This landscaping, this afternoon, we've reduced the massing of this bump out. We're doing we need a little bit more parking downtown. This seemed to be a little bit out of scale. So we could reduce the amount of this area. That would just be a landing pad, place for chairs to go. If a restaurant or anything ever happens in this building, this could be an outdoor cafe. But
How much are you talking about reducing that?
we're probably gonna cut it in about half. So it'll be, about right there is what we looked at this afternoon when we were with Ab and Marsh down at their offices.
It's gonna really, if there is a restaurant there, that's gonna really limit their
Yeah.
outdoor seating.
But are we in the business of providing seating to businesses?
So,
I am if it's bringing people.
yeah,
Well, the other question I had was a little bit further down Hubbard, you show
okay.
pedestrian lights in the middle of parking lot entrances, and I'm trying to figure out how those
Where
go
were
there.
we at, Peter?
It would have been it would have been the Hubbard Street parking lot next to the old chemical bank. Well, what was
Okay,
chemical
right
now.
here, this one right here.
Are those street lights right there?
Yeah, that's a good catch.
Because when you put it over the ones you sent us
Yeah.
on the packet, it shows it right in the middle of the entrance
Yep,
ways.
that's a good catch. The one thing I also will just let you know, we are gonna have to look at these 3 landscaping islands. And so this whole north side of Hubbard so it needs to be kind of washed a little bit.
Yeah.
For all of our streetlights, consumers wants this island to be the area where they have their control panels. So, but that's a good catch. Thank you for catching that. So so you're still gonna have room out here for outdoor cafes. You can still get 20 people out here in this area. But this is, gonna change a little bit in the massing.
Currently, there's no door there anyway, right? On that side, yeah, so.
Correct, yeah, there is a door right here. Yeah, we looked it up on Street View today. These are steps that come into the right of way.
Okay.
It's not that building hasn't been used in 15 years or so. Exactly.
The sidewalk also does become wider on the other side in this plan, so they do get a little bit more there.
So as we work our way down, this area right here, we're gonna have a dub down here. This was the old Welcome Center. They still are gonna want access. This is a loading dock for 136 Brady. They're gonna wanna be able to have some kind of access if cars aren't parked right here. We are eliminating 1 curb cut here into this large parking lot, but we're preserving this curb cut in this area, trying to make it more pedestrian friendly. One of the decisions, these are 2 benches right here. We are relocating these 2 benches because these 2 benches face the Payroll parking lot. And it's just not attractive to have people look upon a parking lot. So we're gonna relocate these to Brady Street where people can actually use them where the shops are. This is Brady Street. More or less, what you're seeing here is not what's going to be built. After talking with the DDA on Monday, they were very clear. they would like more parking than what we're showing in this general area. So we are gonna go with parallel parking down the entire stretch of Brady Street on both sides, similar to the parallel parking we have on Chestnut on both sides. We will still have sidewalks that are approximately 10 feet in width, which is, you're getting near the minimum threshold for a successful urban sidewalk when you're at 10 feet. But that will allow, the businesses and these buildings, to do some sidewalk sales, spill out a little bit onto the sidewalk, create an urban environment that's pleasant to walk up and down.
So that means we're getting rid of all of those bump outs and all the character of that, and we're just gonna have ugly, straight sidewalks?
So I don't know if I
big-
would use the
Our
word
big
ugly.
streetscape, I am gonna use that word.
You may, but what we're gonna have is parallel parking on both sides of the street, 10-foot wide sidewalks with plantings along the sidewalk and road curb, like we have down on the other parts.
Has no character.
Yeah. I'll show you Locust. All right? But point taken. This is Locust Street from Brady to Trowbridge. Bump outs on the end, seating walls on the end, parallel parking on the east side, and angled parking on the west side. And this is Locust Street going two ways. So, it'll be a two-way traffic.
So that's more of what you're looking at for Brady too.
That's more of what we're looking at Brady, but it's gonna be parallel parking on each side. One of the gifts we get with Locust Street is the buildings are not constructed all the way out to the right-of-way line. So there's like an additional 4 feet of sidewalk that's on private property. We don't get that on both sides of Brady, we only get that on one side of Brady. So we couldn't do angled on one side and parallel on the other like we are doing here.
I think on, when your point of a bump out, I think the best place maybe if you're gonna put one in the midpoint there would be at Mahan Park, at the gazebo there.
Yeah.
Also where a crosswalk could go over to the parking lot across the way. So
Yeah.
that would just become,
So we could lose a parallel parking
All right.
space, do a bump out, and Tony's gonna make a note and let the designers, and that Parker's making a note.
that way, it makes sense for that use of that park. It's
Yeah.
like that makes that entranceway into that park, that if you do park across the street,
Yeah.
you have it right into it.
And then down here further in front of, Minnie's is here, Bubba's is here. We're cutting this landscape island in half as well and preserving this for concrete. So we could have outdoor seating if Bubba's ever opens up again as a restaurant. Sidewalk cafes are a good way to generate economic activity in your downtown. And land and concrete is easier to maintain than trees and flowers at the same time. So in a way, it's a good trade-off. But you'll still have landscaping and the bump out stuff that you see right there just in front of Bubba's. We thought the sidewalk cafe area would be good in this area.
Does it have seating too, Joel?
That would be the responsibility of the store owner in that area.
Okay, so it's not gonna have the wall or anything like that?
No,
Okay.
no, and it's actually to get the right kind of grade at this level where it's crossing over onto Schaendorf right there. At least that's what I call the Schaendorf crossing on that area. This area is about 8 inches higher than this area. So this is gonna slope down and then back up to meet ADA, slope ratios. This is gonna be one level, so it's gonna be kind of like a terrace that we're gonna have to do in that area. And then the last thing on this, from the streetscape perspective, is there is a desire, not from myself, but there is a desire to convert that short block of Trowbridge between Locust and Water into a plaza area. It was first offered by an engineer from Abin Marsh, and I said that would never fly. And then we offered it at a downtown lowdown.
Yeah, it started there.
Yeah, at a downtown lowdown, and I was sure it was not gonna succeed at that level. And Rob, who's part owner of Mugshot, said, this would be awesome. I'm like, it cuts off like vehicular connectivity to your building. He's like, no, this is great. You guys have to pull this off. Everybody else we talked to, I've yet been told, I'm the only person who isn't excited about this, which means it's probably a great idea. So what you're seeing here is this is that really short block between Locust on this side and Water on this. On the south side is Creative Events, and then right here is Minis. You have a seating wall. These thick, bold black lines are seating walls. Think of the seating wall down at the splash pad, 2 feet in the air with a capstone on top. A center landscaped area, so we have brick pavers right here, similar to what we have on the riverfront. Landscaping. This section right here is best described as a pedestal. It is where we can hang, or not hang, but place our Christmas tree. Or if there's another public art installation, like what we have on the riverfront, something like that could go here. I would encourage that we do something that allows us maybe for a interchangeable kind of public art stuff, so it's always kind of changing.
Didn't they even talk about that, maybe setting down in, like a
Oh,
Yeah, so,
lowered down, so it was,
correct. What Teresa's describing is that area that you see that's landscaped kind of goes into the ground a little bit. It's like a I don't want to call it a rain garden, but it's got kind of like a bed to it. And then that center part is raised up from the rest of the landscaping. So that's that focal point right there in the middle.
these are a series of tables that you see. These are, that you can barely see, they're very light on this CAD drawing, are ADA accessible picnic benches, and I'll show you examples of where we are with those. Same with over here. We are looking into the idea, this came from DDA and Public Spaces. I think they both asked if we could do this. They would like us to figure out a way to string Edison lights across this, similar to what we did back in 2017 when we took down the canopy going down to the river. We put Edison lights there, and then most recently on the alley here, next to the Regent Theater and by Morgan Appliance. So we're looking at just doing 4 or 8 black poles that stick about 16 feet in the air. So 1, 2, 3, 4, then 1, 2, 3, 4, where we can do guide wire and string lights back and forth. Or if there's some reason we want to do a banner, we can do a banner. And then the idea that was mentioned by the same engineer today who wanted to do this, he goes, you could also do sunshades to create shade. So
That alley's pretty shady on its own.
I think so, but
The building's all black, all the sunlight over there, so it's not the
we
brightest.
may not need to invest in that part. So that's, the overall feel of where we're going with this streetscape plan. I would say we're probably 90%, 85 to 90% done with, the design drawings. If you recall, last year, working with Abbott Marsh, we secured a USDA grant of about, was it $95,000? $95,000 that paid, for almost a third to do all this work. So we have, shovel-ready plans right now, or we're about 85 to 90% of having shovel-ready plans. Any questions of what you're seeing with trees, planting? We are gonna irrigate everything. We'll touch base on speakers and the fact on the next slide when we get there, but I don't wanna hop off the screen unless there is unless you have questions. I can go back and jump to different segments of the road.
On this screen, since we're already on this screen, the alleyway that of course will now be cut off there, are we putting that into the plan on making sure that we take care of that, since that alleyway cuts behind the building there and comes out onto the street next to the dumpster? I didn't really
Correct.
see much in the plan there,
Nope.
just kind of like
Yeah.
it stopped.
Let me,
but we'd have to do some recurb work around that dumpster
You are correct.
and adjust how that turn in, if we're gonna still leave that as an active alley, allow to turn out into the parking lot. They just,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah, so the alley behind the old city hall, behind creative events, I think it's Klein, the lawyer is there. You know, Bart's Rummery, it stretches the length from Trowbridge all the way down to, Hubbard.
I believe there's a garage back there technically, so we
that-
still have to provide access probably.
So that alleyway is not that alleyway is not a public alley. Each individual property owner on Locust owns their portion of the alley. They just extend their property lines, you know, back all the way. What we are, the drawing we're doing is we're gonna cut off the alley to that area, but we're gonna recurb it, so it bends right into the parking lot.
Yeah, that's what I was asking, because I didn't see it in
Yeah.
the plan here. When they look at the overview over top of the satellite view.
Correct, yeah, so we're gonna go ahead and, it's not picked up here, really. I think this is where it is, that alleyway, because that looks like the back of the building.
Yeah, it's in the packet one, so if you look in the packet overall plan, you can see it, because it's got that satellite view.
Okay,
You can zoom in on them, and you can, that's why I could see where those lights were a problem.
but that's what we were talking about, because we really don't want vehicles coming into this area on a regular basis if this is a pedestrian area. You know, we have to establish the difference between pedestrian and vehiclers.
Now, my thoughts on that whole closing that, I don't mind the closing of the street. I was more having billiards and things to disallow traffic, to allow still a vehicle in if they wanted to bring in a food truck. I'm not sure of this big garden in the center that I'm seeing and all the maintenance and upkeep that adds on. I was fine with closing it or having ability to close that street, but to like invest a ton of landscape and work into that area, that really wasn't what I was thinking, but I'm not completely opposed to it. It's just, hey, what other purposes do we have for it, you know? Or can the food truck pull up on the side there would be a nice event, because you have the parallel spots there. So you could use that area for that as well, but did we need any vehicle access through there? I know when I'm in Mexico, there's plenty of roads that are pedestrian-only roads, but they're pedestrian-only roads during the evening and during other times of the day that they do allow for deliveries, like in Querétaro. Old downtown area of Querétaro is all cobblestone. It's a beautiful city. And yeah, the roads, you're like, the road is the whole sidewalk, but that's only certain times a day, because the rest of the time of the day, the businesses have to get stuff in. But that was my only thought, was to be able to close and open it, or make sure that if we want to have access for anything else to go in there.
I mean, I appreciate what Peter's saying, but when I look at this, first of all, I think it's space making, right? And we need to do that in our downtown. We're creating spaces where people want to gather. And we have such limited green space because we've built out most of our downtown. Like, this is creating a new green space where people can go and sort of enjoy. So that's how I feel like I really like having this here, because we've got Shane Dwarfs, we've got mug shots, we've got minis. Hopefully we'll have something in Bubba's again, where people can get food, can get drinks, come and just sit and hang out. So I really like this space. Even I know, I mean, the Walkplatz is in Germany, which I keep referencing when I see this, but a Walkplatz is more open. You can drive down, but I like the build out. As long as DPW or whoever has to take care of it says, yeah, we'll be okay.
Our sidewalk clearing and all that, we gotta take into consideration how difficult it makes it for all of that. I don't want a flat, like, I don't want just a big flat spot. It would be nice to have planters and different things around. It just seems like that's a lot.
Joel, I know at DDA they had asked about the tree plantings along the streets. Were you able to find out? The question was whether those were kind of boxed in, because we didn't want to run into the problem with roots again, uplifting
Yeah.
our sidewalks. So
If those were raised tree areas or things to help avoid that.
So some of these are what I'm gonna call boxed in within a seating wall, and some are not.
I think on that first slide you had, it had a graphic of both the raised and the trees.
Okay. So they're going to go through Delora that was part of our conversation we had today, was they have to highlight which ones are boxed in and which ones are not. So we can go through, and I can't get these all the way up, unfortunately.
I don't
So I can't, I can just do that.
And I'm sure the landscape architect knows what trees should be in there and would not.
The other thing they're gonna do is they're gonna identify each of the trees that are being planted, which ones are deep root, which ones are shallow root, which ones are what we would call columnar trees, so they look like columns going up, and which ones, spread out, which ones have berries, which ones don't have berries. So I'm having them kind of just create a whole, list. They are, right now, what we have downtown are locust trees and locust trees. We don't have much of a, variation. Thankfully, the landscape architect, these are all the trees that are gonna be planted, in the downtown as part of this, so.
I don't know, are we making
Not
it,
everyone loves trees, though.
are we making it historically accurate to what Locust Street was?
I don't know the answer. I
There was
can
no
tell you,
trees.
my intent was not that ever.
Well, I'm just saying, there was no trees. If you look back at the 1940s and 30s
Thank
photos
you.
of that, there is no trees on that
Thank you.
street at all.
Yeah, the one property owner I talked about says we need to knock down a few more buildings to build more parking lots. And I have a picture that shows Allegan at its busiest when there were no parking lots downtown. And I'm like, every building was full, but there were no parking lots, so.
It brings a question, what's the parking space gain loss in this design?
We don't have that number at this moment, but that's something that we had talked about doing, and we're gonna go get, I think we did a parking study in the summer of 2018. But we're gonna go through and get an updated inventory, because things have changed, that whole parking lot is completely different. So we wanna go through and get a complete inventory of what we have at this moment, and then what this plan shows, so.
Yeah, we do know it's a loss, so we don't need to use the word gain.
Yeah.
There is a parking lot, we do parking space loss, we do.
And for this particular part, all I really
Yeah.
need is like this part, what we're getting lost, and then of course we should know
Bra-
overall how many.
Brady is gonna be a big one, going from angled
Yep.
to parallel, because obviously you get more on angled. Locust is gonna have, all on one side's gonna be great, so they're not gonna lose any. But the other side's gonna go to parallel, they're gonna lose some spaces on that side as well. We'll get that report most definitely to
And-
you.
The last question was, we had done charging stations in this lot. Was there any spots identified in this that they would propose to do that? For
So we are not recommending any charging stations for on-street parking. And the parking lots, yes. The reason we don't want to do them at on-street is we don't want people to, work downtown, park their Tesla there, plug it in, and leave it there for 8 hours when they're at their office. We want the on-street parking spaces to be able to turnover. But in the actual parking lots, that's where we're gonna be semi-aggressive. I mean, if you watched the Super Bowl yesterday, it seemed like every other commercial was an electric vehicle. If that's supposed to give us any insight on where the manufacturers are going.
So I guess in this, when we do the light control box there, maybe we could identify something in that Hubbard Street parking lot if we wanted to put any into there
Yes,
for the future. I'm just thinking, because if we're gonna be tearing up this whole street, we better lay the conduits where we want
Yeah.
them, so we're not having to dig it up again. The same
So-
with like fiber internet or any other utilities to.
so we are having 2 to 3. Yeah, so we're gonna have unused conduits put in through this whole project to address just that. Fiber, also, we're doing, speaker wires are all gonna be underground. The speakers are gonna be planted inside the landscaping beds, so they're not hanging off, telephone poles or anything. This is similar to other places that do it this way. The closest one that I'm aware of is that Outlet Mall place up north by Byron Center. Yeah, Tanger, thank you. So yeah, we're doing conduit in the design. The other thing I should probably point out right now, because it's on the screen and we're gonna have to deal with this eventually anyways, is you'll see the riverfront parking lot is having work done to it. We have 2 sewer mains that go under buildings along Hubbard. it's never wise to have a public sewer main go under a building. Because when that thing breaks, then you're dealing with a building. So we're using this project as an opportunity to grab those two sewer mains and create a new one, which goes down along the riverfront. So we will be ripping up areas, that we just did work on when we did a surface project. So I don't want you guys to be surprised when when you see that happen, say, what in the heck? Even though I'm sure most of you guys will see it, because Parker and I didn't catch the streetlights in the driveway for some reason, even though we went over this pretty darn.
I don't know if I'd call that parking lot or the riverfront a surface project. When I was watching it being built, it was going down pretty deep.
It was going down deep, it
And
was.
a lot of shaking of my building as they were pile driving.
So I just wanted to let you know that is, something we do need to address, because you shouldn't keep your mains underneath buildings.
Have we identified any buildings along that street that may be connected to the sewer still for the rooftop drainages? If there's any that are connected, I don't know, because most of all those are like center drain, they go down through the building. They should go out not to sanitary sewer.
They should
be-
not.
And if we're gonna be digging this up, we should probably identify those to make sure we separate those off.
Yeah, and I don't know if we've ever done any kind of dye test or anything of roof
There was
drains.
smoke test done in early nineties, so some of that should have been
Thank you, Doug.
caught and disconnected. I will say, I'm sure that there's still some that are connected to sanitary. And those, through the project will be hopefully found, identified, and disconnected.
I'm just thinking, we're tearing it up, let's take care of that, because that's a
Yeah.
big,
Oh, yeah, I mean, we don't want roof drains connected, especially ones that we don't know about, so.
I can't charge them for it. But yeah, that's just what I think. Whenever I think of we're tearing up something, we should definitely be thinking of everything else that we should be doing at the same time, whether it's fiber, et cetera, because I've seen all too often us as a city do something and then we tear it up because whatever charter comes through and digs down a line like they did multiple times. And it's just really annoying when I see like a brand new street surface and it's already got patches in it in less than 2 to 5 years.
Does anybody else have any comments or questions, concerns?
Can I, just one real quick question? I saw that the DDA asked about doing something with the entrance and exits on the Pizza Hut parking lot, whatever that we call that parking lot. I don't know what it's called. What is it? The Hubbard Street lot. Has that, you guys had a chance to address that yet? I know that you haven't had much time.
No, so this afternoon, both Doug Swirs, Doug Codsbin, Parker, and I went down to Portage to meet with the engineers from Abbott Marsh to have those discussions amongst, the other things we talked about. That was one of the discussions. When we redesign Hubbard or reconstruct Hubbard parking lot, not Hubbard Street, but Hubbard parking lot, when we reconstruct that parking lot, that will be the time for us to address the in and out, the access. We will run into an issue if we decide to go to a single curb cut, because right now it's 2 and we're planning
used to be
2.
3.
It used to be 3. We're planning 2 with this project. It might be a hiccup if we have to go down to 1, but we'll have to just address that at that time. And at the end of the day, I don't know how you stop people from just disregarding a sign. There's really no way. We looked at it for probably a good half hour today, thinking of how can vehicles move within that parking lot, and we couldn't get a quick answer as part of this. Yeah.
Well, I think if we did something with the planters that are there and you just use the one entrance that goes straight through, you could eliminate some spots there and you could make it where you go straight through or you can turn right or left and you can circle around the parking lot. It would be restriping the lot though, maybe.
Yeah.
Joel, did they discuss those planners today? I know that was a
Yeah.
concern of the DDA too.
Yeah, that's outside the scope
So there's-
of this.
They're staying as is my understanding. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
yeah. We'll clean them up a little bit, but
The aim is to address that parking lot after this streetscape project, so I think that discussion today was talking about those that entrance and exit, that's gonna be addressed when we address the parking lot as a whole.
Well, the reason it should probably also be addressed now is if it's gonna change to a one-in, is it gonna be in the same spot as we're putting curb cuts, we're putting street lights, we're putting all this? And if all of a sudden somebody says, well, let's take away the other entrance and redo it then, that's fine, I guess, but it's something to think about so that if we are gonna go to a single entrance at the center, understand, or if it's gonna move at all.
Right.
I don't like saying, well, we'll address it later because, well, we didn't think about that over Cutler Street, so we didn't do the curb cut-ins there. A couple things there where it's just like, I wanna try to catch as much of this as we can.
Oh, absolutely. I'll just say I'm not sold on the Brady Street change. I mean, I much preferred the angle parking rather than I hope we have a parking problem in town. I mean, I was in downtown Grand Rapids this weekend and it was very difficult to find parking, but I was happy to be there and enjoy the day. And, well, I was able to crutch across the street, but it took us a while to find one. But yeah, I know that was a concern of the DDA, how many parking spaces that we were missing, but my understanding from that meeting was if you switch to parallel versus the angled, you weren't gonna get as many in there anyway, so, but. Dave, I thought you had started to say something. Did you have something?
Well, I just wanted to voice my support for the terraced area that we're closing off Trowbridge. I think that's definitely for the community at large, that's going to be the most significant thing that they'll be talking about. They're not going to worry about a bump out on Brady Street. They're going to call this terraced area the big improvement for the downtown. And I think the more we invest in that, the better. I think if we try to do it part way, I think that's not going to be in our best interest. So I'm fully supportive of that, and I think it does need to be a significant investment.
I agree.
Bill or Mike, did you have any comments? Like in the look of it so far?
I like the idea that little park clear by the bank, what used to be the bank, creative events. I like that idea very much.
We have some furniture to look at.
So on the screen are the street amenities that our landscape architect is recommending. So on November 11th was the only time we could get down to landscape forms. They're a street furniture design manufacturing company down just outside Kalamazoo. We've been there a couple times, staff has. This time we were joined by Mark Heather, who is the chairperson of the DDA, as well as Judy McCall, who's the chairperson of Public Spaces, and Rosie Hunter. I almost said McDonald for some reason. Rosie Hunter, who is on the Public Spaces Commission as well. I'm going to start on the left side of the screen. What you have is a monopole, I call them street lamps or pedestrian lights. These are not street lights. These are not your 30-foot high Cobra lights to illuminate the street. They are designed to illuminate the pathway in the general area. These lights represent a gas light when you talk to the designer that designed them. The light is illuminated up here with a disc, so it throws the light downwards, so it's dark sky compliant, reduces light pollution. And then you can see in this picture, this little glow right here is a stick that comes up that glows, represents, a gas flame. It is a clean pole. We are not adding anything to this pole. We will have a GFCI outlet down here, but we do not plan on putting banners, flag poles. We're going to keep this light clean. I will address flags in a second. This is the collection that goes together with this. We're recommending everything be black. We are not orange. It's amazing. I thought orange was good, and I got shot down on that one too. Parker told me after I left the Public Spaces Commission meeting, they said there's better not be orange picnic tables. DDA as well. And I'm like, well, I'm just trying to get some tiger pride in here, Go Allegan. But everything is gonna be black, so these are the trash receptacles.
Are they all metal?
They're all metal.
The furniture kind of looks vinyl almost.
It's not vinyl, it's
No.
all metal.
Good.
These are trash cans, and then they have recyclable ones, look just like this. These are the benches that you'd see on the street. This is the ADA accessible, picnic table that I was talking about. Tables and chairs. Public spaces, and Parker and Teresa, you can correct me, they had some issues with the slats being horizontal as opposed to vertical. This is the design this collection comes in. Can't change that really, and I don't know how quick we want to go mixing and matching with our designs, downtown. So what you're seeing is what's being recommended. It has been, again, through Public Spaces, DDA, and staff, and our landscape architect at Ivan Marsh that really has an eye for this. If you recall, I forwarded you an email from Judy McCall talking about the chlorine, and then at the end, she had a line, thanks for the presentation. There's some things we have to iron out, but we'll get through this. I think she was talking about the horizontal, slats on the chairs. So, to me, that email represented someone who was supportive of where this was going and is like, we're gonna get this done. This is gonna be good. And she said, let me know what I can do to help, which is always great to hear from residents, ones that want to be part of a solution and not part of a problem.
Bad, I do have to say that they don't have chairs that represent the bench more. I do, how the back is rounded and stuff,
Yeah.
but,
And the one thing I would offer, I don't want to get into a push and pull on anything here, but if you on November 11th, I made it, the offers got out there and tour. The cool thing about landscape forums is they will let us go down there a bazillion times. Their showroom is outside. So if we want to go see how the lights work at nighttime, we can go down there. I'd recommend us wait for the snow to melt a little bit. But, and they are, the ordering time frame to get the stuff in is way out. I mean, it's, like 6, 7, 8, 9 months for them, for us to get an order and the manufacturing to get done. Because they make stuff to order. It's not like going to our local Home Depot store and just picking it off a shelf. But these are the amenities that are being recommended. And I really think the chair is the only thing that is a little hinky, that we have to probably talk a little more about. The other thing that we need to talk about,
do you have a picture that shows two of the tables together?
I can,
That was cool looking.
you can grab one.
I guess we can tell. You put the tops of them together and it makes like a full table, like a full picnic
I think I
table.
saw that later in the packet.
It was really neat, I thought. And I did ask about these being stationary. And, and Joel said no, because his philosophy is, he just
Yeah.
shot me right down. No,
Yeah.
no, what he thought is, this way, they're portable. If you want to sit a group of 10 people, grab your chairs and bring them around, or grab a table. So
And-
it does make very much sense.
My question to that was who then resets everything when it gets moved?
I
But-
said, and we're gonna find him by the river.
Right, and we're just gonna trust that ne'er-do-well teenagers aren't gonna run off with them.
And Joel's comment was, him and Parker will go around every morning and do that.
Well,
So
throw 'em
in
in the river,
Parker's
you
like,
won't
well,
find them.
throwing you under the bus.
So it
Oh,
is-
no, I
it-
grab benches that are misplaced and move down the riverfront all the time and drag them back to where they're supposed to be, and I make him do it with me, so.
There are two kind of
I will
benches
be
on the
there.
riverfront, heavy ones and really heavy ones, we have
Yes.
found out. It is a foundational principle of urbanism to increase people's social skills.
And you are.
Allow them to form their groups, allow them to move stuff around. They do this, I will point to Minis, they put tables out this summer. Never once did those turn up missing. Mark Heather was quick to let us know the chairs behind Something Sweet did turn up missing, so.
I've had plenty of stuff come up missing behind Hubbard Street. Had whole paddle boats go missing and then be found sunken in the river someplace else. But on the subject of the light, did anybody bring up how it's changing our lights as far as the downtown? Because we currently have this design. Are we gonna incorporate any of this design into that?
So the direction we're going in, we did have that discussion. So we have the riverfront design, and then we have Water Street design. But along our streets, our downtown streets of the main retail streets, we only have the tall Cobra.
Well, we also have this on the bridge crossing M40 and also the park up on.
Yep.
Or the
This-
same, I was just, the only thing that I was thinking in it is, it wouldn't have to be all the street lights. It would just be like maybe at a bump out where it's a sidewalk crossing, we have two of our traditional ones to tie in the old and the new. Otherwise, it's like, this section has these street lights.
Yep.
Water Street has these.
So we are viewing Locust, Brady, and Hubbard as like a gaslight district. And they are gonna have specific separate lighting than what we have on the riverfront, along the boardwalk, or the bridge on M222 and on M40. This is a new oomph, a new kind of, look that we're having just on the downtown retail streets. I don't know how we can,
See, but I was thinking about it because we do have a very distinctive light design for all of that, and they're very expensive, I'm quite sure of that, on those lights. The only thing that I was thinking was as pieces as like, you have it, I'd have to see that in height and be like, okay, could you put our ornate one included in this design at like bump outs or certain areas of this design where it then is separate, because the ones that are the street lights are set here, here, here. And maybe it would be something to at least be able to tie the districts together. I just want to make sure we do have the Iron Bridge as our logo. And we are very much historical and have a lot of history and have a lot of ornate iron all throughout this. I'd probably even be more for this street light if it wasn't for that triangular base. If they had something that was a little more ornate that would actually meet into kind of the gas lamp style of the time, because that base just doesn't show, like, doesn't tell me, oh, this is supposed to be indicative of a gas light.
sure. Yeah, and we can ask about the base. I don't think they do, but we can ask about the base. I'd encourage everyone, if you don't know of the exact lights that Peter's talking about, it's right on Water and Locust, or Water and Trowbridge is one of them. And there's like 3 designs on it. They're ribbed, they're twisty, they have the flutes into it. I really would love to be able to find one of those again and just see what the price is, because it is so ornate.
Our signal lights on the bridge have that style. Of course, all of our fencing on the bridge, all the fencing on the boardwalk has kind of that ornate ironwork.
Those are all custom made.
Yep, it's all custom made. I know, I'm trying to tie the two together. Is like, could we put it just as strategic? But if not, I just want to make sure it's not like this abrupt, we're going from like ornate to now we're into modern. I'm at least happy that it's a gas light design, kind of going back to
That's
that.
also historic, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm very matchy, Peter, so I understand that, but I like the thought of this is a separate, like, downtown district, and so.
And
Yeah,
as we
yeah,
struggled with
definitely.
that, as we struggled with that question, that was the answer we came to, is we just have to accept this as a separate. And so there is gonna be a kind of
And
cutoff.
I understood the change that we didn't go with these type of lights for our safe walking, because that was out in the neighborhoods. It wasn't in the downtown core, wasn't in the historic district of this downtown core. So it was like, that was no brainer. Those are just street lights. This, I just want to make sure at least they're black, because,
Yeah, they are gonna be black.
so at least we get some tie in there. I just don't want it to be like abrupt, like you go from one part and you're just like, why did they completely change?
Gotcha.
So if you guys ever wanna go down to landscape forums, I'm free to drive down there, drive you guys down there, meet you down there. Like I said, it's a neat area to walk around. You can kind of see these things. But we're getting to the point now where we need to focus in, and again, this really, from what I can tell, talking to the DDA, which is the advisory board that oversees this, the Public Spaces Commission, this is the direction that they're excited to go in. It's what we've got from our landscape architect and advising us. It's just those chairs that are just the only thing that's a little bit of a hiccup. And, I wear longer shorts than that, so I don't ever have to deal with that. Bill doesn't wear shorts, so Bill doesn't have to worry about that either.
If it's all the same collection, then I'm sure there was a reason for it.
And the last question I have is because we're dealing with the waterfront again and tearing up some of the street there, is what thoughts have been put into the dumpster location? If we're tearing that up, do we want to try to shove it down to the other end and not deal with moving the war memorial and say, comes down, goes down to where the restrooms are, down that direction?
Yeah.
You know, if we're tearing it up, maybe try to solve that problem out at the same time of dumpster locations, because we didn't quite pick very well the first time.
We're gonna look at additional options or other options for the dumpster location on that riverfront. And the more central one is doable, possibly. I mean, we're gonna have to get in with we have a light at the end of the cul-de-sac that has to be relocated, but that's not difficult to relocate a light.
And Peter, I know we're discussing this right now, but that did come up again on Allegan County Informed. So I don't know if anyone follows that, but the relocation of Veterans Memorial Park came up again. So I don't know if Public Spaces has had any more input, or if we're just planning on leaving that there.
I had a conversation with someone one of the veterans who had an issue, and when I proposed the possibility, the concern that was voiced to me was that it was putting it basically in the back room. And so I know we had just kind of discussed offhandedly about moving it up to
Rossman Park.
Rossman, right? And that was received much better. I said, it's right on M89. Everyone coming into town would see it. It's right there where kids will be playing and families will be, and that was well received, so.
Okay.
Yes.
But to be honest, the true issue is dumpster. It's the dumpster, it's not the kids next to it. Most veterans that came didn't care about that there's a play next to it. So really comes down to, if we were gonna move it, it's because we're putting a dumpster there. And so that's why I said, if we're looking at this back area where we gotta tear up again to do the sewer line, is there someplace that it can be snuck in there that the garbage truck can get to? Because that's the biggest issue, is there's not enough turn radius for them to pull into anywhere except for straight down the hill.
That
So it's
sounds
gotta-
like you guys are looking for other locations
I
or
would-
other solutions?
Yeah. I would say everything's up for discussion is my response.
I would also just add to that, I'm a veteran, and it bothers me when it gets used as a jungle gym, and I don't like it, and I want it moved. Just for the record.
Yeah, I know that has come up from a couple different council members with that concern, but
I don't know if
Yeah.
have you seen people out there using it as a jungle gym? Okay.
Yeah.
So, I haven't seen it, so.
Yeah, whenever there's events downtown. I mean, there's families, kids don't know. They don't know what it is, so they're climbing on it, and it's just not what I think it's supposed to be.
So with the downtown streetscape.
good
Parker took-
segue.
Yeah, it was a great segue.
Bring it back.
Parker took notes. Like I mentioned, we're 95% complete with the design. We're gonna address streetlights and curb cuts. Thank you for catching that. We're identifying the trees and which ones have boxes, which ones don't have boxes, and what kind of trees are in those areas.
I did
Yes.
want to ask, I don't see a bike rack up there.
That is a good catch.
Okay.
That has been brought up. And the bike rack that was submitted by our landscape architect was obliterated by the
Yeah.
Public Spaces Commission.
I knew that there was something else that they didn't like, and it's because it wasn't on the screen that. it
There's a
didn't
reason why
associate
Joel
with me.
didn't put it up there,
That
because
was,
The bike
there was,
rack.
there was not a lot of love for the.
usually when a group of people say, don't go that way, I try to stop and not go that way anymore.
In the middle of, like, nowhere, like, just rings.
Yeah, well, I see a lot of good opportunity there. Like, I see cities that put their logo in the bike rack, or bike racks have interesting shapes. It just,
Yeah.
if we can find a good one, it's
Yeah.
worth a
Yeah,
little.
absolutely.
investment,
We
I
are going to have bike racks in the downtown. We just we failed on our first attempt at showing a bike rack. I still think they're cool, but no one else agrees with the ones we came up with.
Just remember, the bike rack should have access from the street side, because they're not allowed on the sidewalk.
Correct.
Right,
No biking on sidewalks.
I saw that.
That is a good design.
Did anyone have any other comments about the streetscape?
Any major issues with the design and the way we're going?
No,
I'm not hearing anything from people.
I'm very excited, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so next up, real quick, we've got a review of our council agenda. There is one amendment that's needed under 10A2. This is for the Oakwood Cemetery, used by Friends of Oakwood. We just need to change the dates to June 3rd and 4th. So I will introduce that amendment when we get to the approval of the agenda this evening. I'll just need a support. Okay, is there anything else that anyone had any questions about? No? Okay. We'll go ahead and adjourn at 6:55 to reconvene for the regular meeting at 7. No further additions or corrections or discussion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Under agenda item number 5, we have an approval of minutes. Under 5A, we have approval of the study session minutes from January 24th, 2022. Council, did we see any additions or corrections? Staff, did you receive any additions or corrections? No? Seeing none, could I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Support.
It has been moved and supported. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Under 5B, we have an approval of the regular meeting minutes from January 24th. Same questions, council and staff. Any corrections, additions? Seeing none, could we get a motion, please?
So move.
Support.
It has been moved and supported. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next up, we're going to jump to agenda item number 8, which is public hearings and adoption of ordinance. Under 8A.1, we have a first reading and scheduling of a second reading and a public hearing for ordinance 501. We're going to schedule that for February the 28th, and this is regarding single lot special assessments. Staff.
Sure. City of Allegan throughout the year has to take unpaid bills and place them on people's taxes. Water bills, sewer bills. We rely on state law to place those on taxes. When we get into blight, there is some case law that allows us to place them on state taxes as we've done in the past here. However, under the recommendation of our city attorney, he is requesting that city council adopt a single lot single lot assessment ordinance, which where each year we will come to you with a list of properties that have not paid their ordinance fines. So if we have to go clean up their yard due to blight enforcement, and they haven't paid us for our, work or our costs incurred, we can put them on their taxes at that time. So he was just looking at some of our practices as the city attorney does, and he says, hey, let's clean this one up a little bit more instead of relying on case law. Any questions? As a reminder for council, all ordinance adoptions are a two-step process, so this is a first reading. Your motion tonight is to accept it as a first reading and schedule public hearing and second reading for February 28th, and then after that, it goes into effect 20 days after that public hearing.
Thank you, Joel, for letting us know what needs to be said. Could I get a motion, please, if there are no further questions?
So moved.
Thank you, Roger. Can I get a support? Thanks, Teresa. Is there any discussion, council? Looked all pretty straightforward to me in reading the ordinance, so. With no discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next, we have agenda item number 9, which is public comment. Now is the time for anyone in the public to come up, make public comment at the podium. You can state your name and address. You have 3 minutes. Hi there.
My name is Mason Eel. I guess mostly the reason I'm here is about the roundabout that's you guys are voting on today.
Yeah, Mason,
And-
I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but could you state your address for me, please?
My address is obviously not. It's 2683, and then I'm on 111th, just
Okay.
down.
Thank you.
My only concern is with the roundabout, the traffic between what the roundabout would be and the light at the bottom of the water tower hill. Everything else, to me, it looks great. The continuous flow of 40 South and 89 and everything, and the oversized loads and whatnot, that's a little bit, we have a lot of that. But the traffic's always backed up between those two lights, and I don't see the point in the constant traffic flow going that direction if within less than 1,000 feet, they're going to drive into another light. Most of the traffic is coming from, for what I assume, it seems like they're heading through that way, either to 222 or 40 North. So what does the roundabout do for us other than keep the traffic flowing? So that's my main concern is that.
Okay, Thank you so much, Mason. Appreciate you coming out and making that comment. Is there any other public comment for the evening? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on. And Mason, just so you know, typically we just kind of absorb your public comment, but I will say that those are some questions that had been brought up to MDOT. And so I know that council had received their feedback on that, so. Okay, so moving on, we've got agenda item number 10, which is our written petitions and reports from special committees. First up, we have 10A.1, which is a request by Christ Community Church to utilize Mahan Park Gazebo, and they're requesting a police escort if available for a procession through downtown for April 15th, 2022. Staff?
Sure, very quickly. This is an annual request that we received from this organization. I believe it's a collection of churches that partake in this Good Friday procession. Their time spent at Mahan Park is just to organize, it's a starting point, the actual procession down Locust and then Trowbridge. And I think they end up at the Good Shepherd Church over at Hubbard and Walnut is where they, conclude the procession. They've already reached out to our police chief. Jay said, yeah, if we have someone available, we will gladly, fulfill that request. I think in years past, they've also just marched on the sidewalk, so.
Yeah, we regularly do. Yeah.
Council, is there any questions at all? Or Roger, did you want to add anything about this if you're familiar?
No, it's just, it's usually probably 30 to 40 people. We do probably, I've done it for probably, I don't know, eight of the last 10 years or so. And yeah, we've done it probably on the sidewalk as often as we've done it down the middle of the street. So it's pretty tame, and yeah, I don't know what else to say about it.
Okay.
Yeah, Rick Hoyer, who, when he was chief, used to be part of the procession. So I guess that was the police presence in years past.
Thanks, Roger. Were there any questions, council, for staff?
Is there generally a cost to a police escort, or is this just if there's no cause, they jump in on it?
This is if there's no police calls, they jump in on it and lead. There's generally not a cost for this.
Roger, you said it's not that long of a time, it's just
Yeah, it's maybe a half hour.
maybe a half hour, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, really, we walk from Mahan, right, like you said, down Locust Street, well, Brady to Locust, then down Trowbridge, and then cut over on Walnut over to Good Shepherd. So yeah, it's maybe a half hour.
And there's typically a cost if someone's reserving Mahan Park, so we need to decide whether or not we would like to allow them to use that.
Well, in this case, if they're not actually using the gazebo, or was it Mahan?
Well, the use of Mahan Gazebo,
Use the Mahan gazebo, but anybody could use it without paying us
without
anyways.
reserving, absolutely.
Just for the passability reserving, and this is on Good Friday, it's like,
Yeah, nobody else is gonna be down there. I don't know why. I don't even know why they're reserving. Just show up.
It's staff's recommendation that council authorize the use of the gazebo as stipulated in the letter.
I would make a motion to accept this and allow for a police escort if the chief has no issue with it.
Support.
All right, it has been moved and supported. Council, is there any further discussion? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next, we have 10A.2, which is a request by the Friends of Allegan's Oakwood Cemetery for approval of the Living History Tour at the cemetery on June 3rd and June 4th of 2022. Staff?
Yeah, very quickly, again, this is an annual request that we receive from now known as the Friends of Allegan's Oakwood Cemetery. They are a bona fide nonprofit. They do this tour, twice a year on consecutive days. City staff sometimes partakes in being actors as part of this tour, and by city staff, I mean Parker Johnson. This is probably one of the coolest things I've ever participated in. That's not a city-run event. What they do is really cool, and I encourage everyone to sign up and, go on one of these tours. Staff's recommending that you approve the use as stipulated in the letter submitted.
Thanks, Joel. Any questions, council? Okay, could I get a motion, please?
Motion.
Could I get a support?
Support?
Thank you. It has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next, we have agenda item number 11, which is reports from our boards, commissions, and city offices. Under 11A, we've got city boards, commissions, and area agencies. Under 11A.1 is a report from the DDA meeting, which I can make a report on. So we started the meeting by re-electing our chairperson, Mark Heather, and our vice chair, Michelle Liggett. And then Carl Canales is now our liaison from DDA to public spaces. I will just bring this up because it kind of came up. We did not have a quorum technically to approve minutes because those in attendance, there were several that had been absent. So Joel had actually reached out to Nick Curcio about that. So as a reminder, you may abstain if you're not present, but you don't have to abstain. So just moving forward, keep that in mind. So one of our minutes has to come back. But moving on, then we did discuss the downtown streetscape. You kind of heard all of the feedback that DDA had. A lot of it was the parking on Brady Street. We also talked about the Hubbard Street parking lot, Peter, that you brought up. And then the trees were the other big issue, causing any issues to the sidewalk. Oops. And then finally, we did support a continuation of using the review magazine to highlight some of Allegan. And that was pretty much it. Unless there was something I missed, Parker? No? Okay. So next, we are going to move to 11A.2, which is a report from the HDC. Dave?
Yeah, so we had 3 applications. One of them was for the old city hall. Allegan County Community Foundation wanted to replace their windows. And they were, I guess the significant thing there is the back windows, they're actually gonna replace to match the front more closely. The back windows are plastic right now, so just getting higher quality windows in there, they said it was pretty breezy. But the front is gonna keep the same look and feel. Then there was a deck that a building owner wanted to add on the riverfront. That particular structure was a non-contributing structure, and the deck would kind of match some of the other decks that are there, and it would have black iron around it. And then there was a house over in the Pritchard Overlook neighborhood that was replacing with vinyl windows, and that was approved. So that's it from HDC.
Dave, I do have a question for you. I noticed on the minutes that HDC has decided not to do any enforcement for 3 properties on
Yeah.
Marshall.
Let me see which one. There was one 403 Marshall that I think the thought there was it's work that's been done. I think if you were to compare where that structure was before the work and where it is after, I think there would be a hard argument to make that that was detrimental to the historic value of that structure. 228 Cutler, well, I think 360 Monroe, that one is actually, that one was approved, wasn't it?
We do not believe she actually got a COA.
So that's a member of the HDC. So we're sitting here talking and Jason brought up, well, there's 360 Monroe had a fence, and Kristen over here was like, that's my house. And she had somebody drive through her fence recently, and so she's waiting to get work done on her home. And
Is that the back fence, though? Off the deck?
Right on the corner.
Yeah, there's a back deck that was put on that house.
that I
Okay.
couldn't tell you. But yeah, part of the conversation went to what are the historically significant things that we're attempting to preserve, and can we define those clearly? And is it wise to be aggressive in enforcement right now before we have that well-defined? Like, are we sending a good message as an HDC to the community? So it was a discussion that we had. I believe that what actually happened was we delayed the decision for enforcement until a later meeting.
Okay,
So.
I appreciate that. I will just say that that makes me very concerned because I think we do have an ordinance and we do have specific standards that we are using when we do that. So in order to be equitable, we need to call out people that aren't following that ordinance. And we have a process in place that we've used for many years, which is, you know, it's in our historic guidelines or our handbook that you would send out a stop work order, and then that individual would need to stop work, and they'll get that application into HDC and the certificate of appropriateness. So if we're saying that certain people don't have to, what message does that send anyone in the future that doesn't do that? Or someone that is going to go through that and then has to jump through those hoops? I mean, that's my concern.
Yeah, so right now what we've got are individuals going and finding properties and then calling them out to the city. I don't know that I would be confident in saying that every property that's done work on a building within the HDC without getting a C of A has received a notice. I think those have been enforced on a case-by-case basis, and they've been done where individuals call out properties in the past.
Right, and that's
And
the
so
only
that-
way that that happens. Yeah, is that if somebody sees that work is being done. But that's my concern, because I don't know how we can tell somebody, oh, go ahead, Roger, I'm sorry.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm just, my brain's going as you're talking. So I've been kind of going over this back and forth in my head, and I know we've talked a lot about it, and we've gone round and round about the HDC. But can you tell me what was behind the decision for, what I heard was, well, we're not gonna enforce these until your committee gets done kind of re-looking at everything they're supposed to do. What's the thinking behind going to that side, say we're not gonna enforce anything versus we're gonna enforce what we already have until we go through the process? What was that thinking?
Yeah, so part of it is the relationship with the community. Part of it is the definition of what's historic and what needs to be preserved. So if we look at some of the cases in front of us, you know, with the 403 Marshall Street, there was a concern about the size of the windows. There is a stipulation, to be clear, in the ordinance that if you're doing repairs or maintenance on the building, that's allowed. So there were broken windows in that home, and so the windows had to get replaced. And there was a concern brought up about the size of the window changing. But when I look in the historic district application, so where we would call out this is a structure that's in our historic district, there's not a description of the size of the window that is considered something that needs to be historically preserved. So I don't know that we could go to that homeowner and say, these are the windows that you changed your size, and this is the size they have to be historically accurate to that home. And the reality is like that there were vinyl siding on it before, and there's vinyl siding on it now, and there were broken windows before, and there are fixed windows now, and there was a tarp on the roof before, and there's not a tarp on the roof now, and there was a broken garage door before, and there's not. So like it's clear there was maintenance being done. It's clear that that was an improvement for the benefit of the city and the neighborhood. So to go and tell this person that was bad because you didn't come ask our permission, the city didn't do anything about those. The HDC didn't do anything about those. This homeowner did. So to harass them because they didn't ask permission first, I just don't know that that's the right thing to do.
Go ahead, Teresa.
So outside of even the historic district, if I decide to change my structure or add something, even if I'm not in the historic district, I have to come to City Hall and get a permit to do that.
And I don't know if they did get a permit, and if they did get a permit, that raises an interesting question of why didn't they get flagged at that time and told?
You don't have to get a permit for everything you do on your house, only certain things. Like you replace your front door, you don't have
Change
to.
the structure of it, you do.
To change the window size, I don't think you do. If you're not changing the structure, it's,
I'm just saying, if I change the structure of my house, I have to come to the city and get a permit. So what is the difference if I'm in the historic district and I don't come to the city and get approval for something? When it's in our ordinances to
that's-
do so?
That's where I struggle, is we have an ordinance that our previous council chose to keep. And so that needs to be followed, in my mind. And, you know, do people agree with that?
Yes, I do.
I do.
That we have a
yes.
process in place that has been used, and until, you know, we have recommendations to change that and council changes that, that needs to stay the way it is. I mean, I'm just gonna use myself as an example, and I know we have a long agenda, so I'll keep this as brief as I can. I've been in discussion with Lori about changing out my windows. And I know I've brought this up several times. I have 7 different kinds of windows in my house. What standard are they gonna keep me to? But I know that I need to do this. And if HDC is basically willfully allowing someone not to follow the ordinance because it does state that they shall apply and get a certificate of appropriateness, then what's gonna stop people from willfully choosing not to follow it? And I think if we say, you know, this group, you don't have to get, you know, a letter or anything, but you're telling another, you know, within 30 days, someone else that they have to, that's not fair and equitable. And that was part of the discussion we had about the ordinance to begin with, is that, you know, it's putting burden on people in the HDC, but we chose to keep that. And in my mind, we need to follow it, so.
From my standpoint is, I'm fine with it. They should have gotten the notice and they should have just put in their application, had to come before the board, and they could have made that, hey, this work had to be done. Because there's also emergency work that, under the HDC, if you have to do emergency work to secure a structure, you don't have to get a COA, but you do still have to apply for it. So it would be just applying for it, coming in, making your case on why it was staying this way or that way. It's matching the rest of the house, so we're not changing it. The house was updated in the 60s, and so we're not gonna put some of the windows back to 1930s and some of the windows at the 60s. Okay, you made your case. But at least to say, this is the process, I've had to do the process, it's not a lot of fun. It's not, but currently, the ordinance is still in effect.
Okay.
So are there examples of like demolition by neglect that we should be going after too, or, you know what I mean? I mean,
Well,
like
I mean-
if you look at 403 Marshall, there's a house next to it that I would say lost some historical significance, and should we go after them, or?
Well, I'm just stating, like, moving forward, and I'm hearing that from most of council, that we need to follow, HDC needs to follow the ordinance and the protocols that have been used. And so, yeah, I don't know if you can take that back to them at the next meeting, or do you guys meet again this week? Your subgroup?
We'll do a study group, but that's
Okay.
outside of the normal business.
Right.
This was a regular business HDC meeting.
Yeah,
but-
so is that, I
It's
don't
all-
want to paraphrase what people are saying, but is that amenable to everyone, that we need to follow this ordinance and send out? Yeah?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, yes, I struggle because, I mean, we've had conversations where if somebody's doing work on a house that needs to be done, have work done, I hate to tell them, don't do it, or to tell them to stop doing it. But how do we tell them, well, you don't have to do it, but everybody else has to, you know, has to come and go through the proper channels? I struggle with how we're enforcing it,
And it's a
And-
flawed ordinance, but until it gets
so we can.
changed, it is what we need to follow. And, I mean, if we need to bring it back, and if we're not gonna follow it, then I'd be happy to bring it back to council for, you know, to rescind the ordinance until we have something to replace it. I mean, to me, that's the other option, so.
Yeah, it's, if we have an ordinance in place, we should, it's our job to enforce it, right?
So if you could just take that back, Dave, and let them know, like, moving forward.
Well,
We need to-
staff does that, so you guys,
Okay.
are you guys directing
Joel-
staff to do that?
Well, just as our liaison, I mean, so Joel, could you just make sure that that's,
Yeah.
thank you. Next up, we have 11.8.3, which is a report from the Airport Advisory Board. Peter?
All right, so we met last week. Let me get to the meeting minutes. We had 4 members in attendance. We went over previous minutes, but we didn't have them in the packet, so we didn't approve any minutes since we didn't have anything to approve. We elected the chair and vice chair. Since we were very short on the number of members, we only elected the vice chair. The current chair is on vacation, or he's out of the country, wasn't able to attend the meeting, so we didn't know if anybody else wanted to be chair, or nobody there really wanted to be, and I don't think I can be chair. So we had 3 members that could be chair, and none of the other wanted to be, so we'll just wait till the next meeting to elect that. We did an update on MDOT's inspection of the tree lines. We're still under a temporary permit for the airport because we have to remove these trees, but MDOT still hasn't come back identifying exactly which trees we have to remove or trim. We're still waiting on them, and we'd really want them to get back to us quickly because there's issues on cutting down oak trees. We looked at a discussion on the proposal for the credit union to use that front yard area again. They've done it in the past for doing their customer appreciation. It's the area just at the front of the airport driveway there. I think they didn't do it last year, and one year they also did it downtown. We were fine with that. It's just if we're gonna do that, we probably gotta make sure if the grass runway's open, that we put in a notum to close it for the day. Because grass runway's right there. We went over the airport rules. Only thing that came up when we were discussing the rules was the on-site camping, which is banned in the rules. There is some airports that do allow for limited camping for pilots that fly in. So it was brought up, hey, it's not something that we're necessarily gonna wanna do right now, but it was brought up as, do we ever do anything like it? So far, no. Rules stayed as they were. We voted and approved them. The airport manager comments I see in the minutes will probably have to be updated because I don't remember discussing any of that. Bathroom floor maintenance, security cameras, courtesy car, vending machine. I don't know if that was just copy and pasted from a previous one.
Could be,
Okay.
but it would be the board that would
Yeah,
make the changes to the minutes.
we'll have to make a note of that, so. Nothing else really. We discussed a little bit about the helicopter tours and a good location for them to be taking off from. There were some comments from the board about that the location that they were in probably wasn't the safest and was outside the fence line of the runways, and to suggest to bring them over onto the other side of the terminal, onto the pavement in front of our terminal there where the gas pumps are, maybe off in the grass there, because they were going, I think, from the back side of the building. I never saw them taking off. There was also some comments about how the helicopter flying low over houses. There were some complaints. And so I think we will adjust what their pattern is to say this is what is suggested, to get up to altitude or take a different route out of town, just to be nice to our neighbors. We don't want to be making a mess of the neighborhood. And that was about it.
Peter, real quick, how is the private hangar coming? Is that getting close, do we know?
I think he's waiting for doors. That's the only thing that I see on there that's missing currently is the doors for the hangar, and probably, as everything else in this world, slow to get anything.
Okay.
As far as I see, the whole structure is there. I don't know, I haven't gone and toured, and he wasn't at the meeting, so it wasn't really brought up.
Okay, thank you. All right, next up, we have 11A.4, which is a report from Public Spaces. Teresa.
Okay, we had our meeting last Wednesday. We had an update from Mel Brummel on the mountain bike and hiking trail. We're at 3.5 miles, and he's still working on making it 6 miles so it can be state recognized, which I think is very cool. We did have, and I can never think of his first name, Leggett, Mr. Leggett, what's his, Jim, is going to build a 65-foot bridge, has offered to do that. If anybody's been back in there, he did build a small bridge before, and he has offered to do that again but this time it needs to be large. Joel is being very careful to make sure that we have the proper information, the proper permits and all of that we need to go over a waterway. And then Parker presented us with the Allegan Parks brochure for final review. There was a couple things, some of the font and color, but other than that, it looked really nice to go. So we again discussed the cemetery rules. They're still in review. I guess I'm gonna look at staff because it's kinda, I think Parker's getting the finger, that it's kinda on him to bring, are you set to bring those to council, Parker? I don't wanna put you on the spot, but,
Yeah, the notes that I received from Public Spaces after that second review made it clear that they still want to see some changes made. So I'm going to take those notes, meet again with Doug and with Jeff, and Michaela sat in on that conversation as well.
okay.
So we'll refine that, and then it'll come back to Public Spaces for then their recommendation to council.
So what would happen if you would share that with council? And then we could put all of our thoughts together?
Yeah, I mean, is that something that can be done?
I mean, that way we could read them over and maybe give you our thoughts at the same time.
Sure.
Okay,
Are you okay if we do that via email?
I'm fine with that,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Just a rough draft type thing, so we know maybe what they're looking at, and we think no dogs, yes dogs, or whatever, we'll go back to the old argument, but that way we got a starting point, okay? Thank you. And then, trees, again, were brought up, replacing, Rosie asked about replacing some that we had taken down. And Joel explained, if we take down a big tree like they did on Cutler Street, we can't plant another one right there because of the root. We only grind the stump down so far. So she was concerned about replacing the trees that were taken down. And then we spent a lot of time in the downtown streetscape improvement plan. For the most part, that was well received at Public Spaces. I think everybody really liked it. Like Joel mentioned, except for the chairs having the horizontal and the vertical. Like I said, I do find it funny that they don't match. But other than that, I think that's all we talked about. So at the end, there was some concern about the chlorine that was off the meeting agenda, but Parker had a couple of questions asked to him over that, so that's about it.
Thanks, Teresa. Moving on, we've got 11B. Under 11B.1, which is for our finance department, we have a request to approve accounts payable and payroll. Teresa.
These are really big numbers. We had accounts payable in the amount of $1,998,047.93. And payroll in the amount of $122,718.67. For a total disbursement of $2,120,766.60. Make a motion to approve.
It has been moved and supported. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next, under 11B.2, we have a request to adopt Resolution 22.03, amendment and a restatement of the 457 retirement plan provisions. Staff.
Real quick, before I hand this off to Tracy for council, for the ease of minute taking, you've seen in the agenda, there's quite a few resolutions. Your motion could be very simple. I move we adopt Resolution 22.03. You don't have to go into all the details, because the details are in that resolution, so just trying to make it easier for council.
Thank you.
Tracy?
This resolution is updating our 457 retirement plan provisions. IRS rules and that require that we update these every so often. So we, after switching to Watkins Ross from our other third-party administrator. We decided to review all of this to make it, so they were familiar with the document, we're familiar with the document, and this is all of a whole lot of information that we need you guys to approve so that I can get all of those plan provisions updated.
Do you have a cliff notes of the updates? That was a lot, or is it?
It is a lot of information.
Or just like a main point?
So the main part for the 457 is updating the QDRO procedures, which is if somebody gets divorced or death or whatever. I don't know that had ever went to council before because I had never seen that. Updating our loan policy. There was a couple things in there. We would only let them do a certain amount every so many years and that. So we're like, it's their money, they can borrow it when they want. So we updated a couple of those things. And then the rest is just the IRS stuff. Let me look at it real quick. Do you recall, Joel, off the top of your head?
Yeah, was this the one where we went from yearly contributions to
Nope.
paycheck?
The 457 is the one that the employees contribute to. This is their, I think this pretty much is just a straight up update to the policy to get, the every 5 years and have, there really wasn't a whole lot of changes, just updating.
It was more or less housekeeping, so you'll see on page 10 of the actual 457 plan documents, we had to update to recognize Carol Canales, Michaela being on this instead of Danielle Bird and Tracy Stahl. So it's, Carol, Michaela, and Tracy now that are our trustees that oversee this account.
And that will be the case on the
All of
other
the documents moving forward.
resolutions as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry to put you on the spot there, Tracy. I
That's
didn't need
okay.
you to go in too much. Just thought if there was a Cliff Notes version, that would be helpful. So,
And this really is because we switched the new administrators, and so they go through the whole document, and it was a long conference call with them, question by question. So when you went through that 457 plan document with the X's in the side, it was, what do you want to do here? And we would say this and this. And some of it was a carryover from past practices, and some of it may have been a slight change.
okay. Council, were there any other questions regarding this? No? Then could I please get a motion to adopt Resolution 22.03?
So move.
Support.
It has been moved and supported. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next, under 11B.3, we have a request to adopt Resolution 22.04, which is an amendment and restatement of the MPP retirement plan. Tracy?
It'll be a lot of the same information there. This one is our defined contribution, the one that the city puts in for the employees. So the other one was money that the employees put into their own retirement. But it's a lot of the same type of information there, and then updating it with Watkins Ross and to be in compliance with the IRS for their every 5-year thing. The one big difference here, I would say that we made changes to align with how we do things. I don't know if you all recall that we used to just do an annual contribution in January of each year before Joel got here. And then when Joel got here, we decided to do every pay period. So we were making the contributions every pay period. So we had to update the plan documents to reflect that change. And there, I just totally lost the thought that I was having. Do you? What's that? Yes. So, you want to explain that?
So just two things real quick. Back to the, before Joel got here, statement. Before I got here, the city would just make a one-time deposit annually into the employee's retirement. This is the 10% defined comp. When you do that, your employee does not get to benefit if the stock market is rising in the early, 1, 2, and 3 quarters, and then drops down. So where I came from, and we had ours deposited with every single paycheck. So I reached out to some people I know, financial advisors, and they go, no, if you really want to benefit your employees, you do it on the pay period. So they get to benefit when it, when it grows. And then when it goes low, they also experience that, but there's more benefit for the employees. So that was a decision that was made directly to benefit the city of Allegan employees. The other thing we run into is when can an employee enroll in this program? So it's not vesting, but it's the enrollment part.
It is,
And it's
yep.
every 6 months they can enroll under the old ones.
So it's,
And with
if an
this,
employee's, when they get hired, they have to wait till they've worked 1,000 hours, and it has to be either on January 1st, following their hire date, or July 1st, January 1st or July 1st, following their hire date, if they've got the 1,000 hours. So we took that out of there because it was complicated, and what's happened is when that changed and we would have our annual evaluations or compliance reviews, I found that after that switch to doing the biweekly payroll deposits instead of annual, we had a lot more issues with people being over, with the way our plan was written. We were depositing either too much or not enough money into their accounts because of those dates. So we just decided that we would do it based on after their probationary period was up, they'll be eligible. And that's what we budget for anyways, and it just makes administratively less nightmares. So those are the big changes with the money purchase plan.
so that's also more just housekeeping things, but also housekeeping things that benefit the employees. In public government, we aren't afforded some of the benefits that people get in the private sector, where you can just give an employee a raise because they busted their butt for the past 3 months, or, give out bonuses and stuff like that. So what we try to do from.
Or even buy lunch. We can't do that.
We can't even buy lunch for them. That comes out of our pockets. So what we are trying to do is find opportunities, within the rules that we operate to, just increase the benefits of working for, the city. Gone are the days of pensions that cities used to have, except for our police department. Gone are the days of these really, Cadillac health plans that public employees used to receive. So we're just trying to find, ways to make it, more of a benefit to work for, the city of Allegan. And these are some small steps we can take.
Well, great, I appreciate you guys taking a look at that then. So if there's no further questions, council, any questions? All
I
right,
just have one,
Go ahead,
and
Teresa.
it was also on the other one, on the 457 as well, Tracy. It says effective date is January 1st of 2022. I assume you've been practicing this, you just had to do the,
Yep.
as Joel would say, the housekeeping part?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yep.
thanks, Teresa. Okay, if there's no further questions, then could I get a motion, please, to adopt resolution 22.04?
So move.
Could I get a support? It has been moved and supported. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next, we have 11B.4, which is a request to adopt resolution 22.05, which is an amendment number 1 to the MPP retirement plan. Staff?
This one is already an amendment to that money purchase plan that you just approved in 2204. But what this one is doing is helping us fix the compliance issues that we have right now with the deposits that were made the previous year, not lining up. So instead of, well, and technically, we really can't take money back, and we had budgeted for all of those things. This plan amendment number 1 allows us to address the issues that came back in our, the bad marks in our compliance review, and it makes us compliant by adopting this amendment, which mostly just backdates it to January 1st, and it matches the practice that we've been doing.
Thanks, Tracy. Are there any questions, council? Okay, seeing none, could I get a motion, please, to adopt 22.05 resolution, which is the amendment number 1?
So moved.
Could I get a support? Thanks, Teresa. And Roger. It has been moved and supported. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next, we have 11B.5, which is a request to adopt resolution 22.06, which is to adjust our March Board of Review date. Staff?
Correct. March Board of Review per state law needs to meet the second Monday of March. That would be March 14th. However, we cannot generate a quorum. State law does allow the Board of Review to change the date. So they are recommending that the date be changed to Wednesday, March 16th at 10 a.m.
Thank you, Joel. Council, are there any questions regarding that change of dates? Okay, seeing none, could I get a motion to adopt resolution 22.06?
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and supported. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. And next, we have 11B.6, which is a request to adopt resolution 22.07, which is our hardship exemption policy. Staff?
So, per state law, we are afforded the opportunity to create a hardship exemption for people who would like to be exempted from property taxes due to hardships. Each year, you have to adopt this policy. It's based on one's income. The policy was in your report, and it usually follows federal poverty guidelines. There's a process they have to go through. We have to follow that process as established by state law, but we do need council to adopt this resolution.
Thank you, Joel. Do we have any questions, council?
Does it have to do with the state law that says we have to call it a poverty exemption instead of like a financial hardship exemption?
I do not know. I just know
Poverty
they
just seems
call
like
it,
a really harsh.
it's called a hardship exemption.
Yeah.
So we do use the words
Were you-
hardship.
You're using the term hardship?
Yeah, it's
officially?
actually in the document. It says City of
I
Allegan
must
hardship
admit,
guidelines.
I just kept seeing poverty exemption.
It does also say poverty
It
exemption.
does say poverty throughout the
Yeah, it says
document too.
adoption for
But the
guideline of
title, I
poverty-
think, says
poverty.
hardship exemption guidelines.
Well,
And the resolution says poverty exemption.
poverty, that's what I was.
Somewhat
referring to.
interchangeable, I apologize,
That's
but it
good.
does deal
I
with.
would
poverty.
prefer, can we make the change to hardship exemptions? Seems more palatable to me.
Well, I
It
think
lets
it's-
people keep their dignity.
Is it based on the poverty level
It-
is why
it-
it's based on, that's why
yeah.
it's,
And Joel, I think that some of the state documentation calls it a poverty exemption. I don't know.
Could be.
So we need to keep the same terminology. If that's the case, that's fine.
that's the
I
case.
understand that.
I can check with Lindsay if you want me to make sure.
I don't want to hold this up.
Don't hold it
Okay.
up, please.
I don't want to hold it up.
We have board of review that starts in 2 weeks.
All right, so
Or a
I'll
month.
leave
With
it.
hardships who need this exemption. Jonathan.
And the
All
whole,
right,
yeah.
I'll leave it alone.
Thank you. We'll look into that for next year.
Thank you for being sensitive to that, Roger. I appreciate you bringing that up. Are there any further questions, council? Okay, seeing none, could I get a motion, please, to adopt resolution 22.07?
so moved.
It has been moved and supported. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next, under 11C, which is our police department, we have 11C.1, which is a request to approve a purchase order from Kustom Signal in the amount of $6,054 for the purchase of 3 radar units. Staff?
Yeah, these were budgeted in the current year budget. These are the same radar units that we purchased last year, so those did go out for bid. Kustom was the low bid at that time. And once we agreed to go with Kustom, we need to make sure all of our radars are the same radars in our police vehicles. So as we are preparing for the new trucks to come in, we need to get the updated radar guns for those. We'll transfer the other ones that we purchased last year into the new ones.
Thank you. Any questions, council? The only thing I had was just that we're looking at about summertime for those new vehicles, or hopefully.
Hopefully. I'm gonna just go with the word hopefully.
Okay. All right.
So move.
Thank you, Mike. Could I get a support?
Support.
It has been moved and supported. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next up, we have 11D, our water utilities. Under 11D.1, we have a request to adopt Resolution 22.08 to purchase, acquire, and construct improvements to the water supply system and to publish notice of intent to issue revenue bonds.
So I'm gonna get this going. We do have department heads here if there are detailed questions that I cannot answer. The first one, Resolution 2208, is for our water supply system. You will recall last year, we contracted with Abin Marsh to put some project plans together in hopes of receiving funding or access to funding for improvements to our utility system. We received access to $3 million of what I'm going to call Booker funds, and that's what I referred to them in the report that was submitted to council. These Booker funds are 100% forgivable, and they will be used solely to address lead service lines in the city of Allegan. We've identified approximately 1,300 lead service lines. A total project cost anywhere from $4.5 to $5 million is what it's going to take to replace all of those. This $3 million is going to go a long way to helping us, replace those lines. And from an administrator's perspective, very fortunate that the state has made these funds available to us. This is a notice of intent. So whenever we do public bonding, we first start with, hey, public, we plan on going out for bonds on this stuff. So this first one is for the water supply system. These are the Booker funds. Once you adopt this resolution, I believe it's a 45-day comment period that, members of the public can come and ask questions or, look into this process a little more. We will be coming back at a later time to go out for bid for the bonds and then issue the bonds. Any questions on this process? So tonight, by adopting this resolution, you are just making your intentions clear that you plan on bonding, through this program.
I'm not seeing any questions from council. So if there's nothing further, could I get a motion to adopt Resolution 22.08, please? Could I get a support? Thanks, Teresa and Roger. It has been moved and supported. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. 11D.2 is a request to adopt Resolution 22.09.
Okay, similar to what we just discussed, this is a notice of intent to issue revenue bonds up to $1.295 million. So as part of those project plans that we had Abin Marsh develop and submit for us last year, we were fortunate enough to qualify for this funding program as well. One difference between this program and the previous one, only up to 20% of this bonding program will be forgiven by Eagle. So we will be, inquiring or acquiring some debt, with this bonding process. This money is necessary to help us finance our downtown streetscape. So this is for our sewer system. So when we're talking about, the streetscape during the study session, and I mentioned, about that one line that's going down the riverfront, plus we're replacing all the sewer mains in the downtown. We're gonna have to find a way to help pay for some of this, and this will be that process. And being able to have up to 20% forgiven, again, from an administrator's perspective, that is a benefit. You are just, adopting this resolution tonight is just stating your intention to go out for that bonding. We would then, after the 45-day period, go out for, actual bids on the bonds and see where the numbers come in at. you're not committing yourself right now to that project.
Thank you for the clarification. Any questions, council? No? Okay. Seeing no questions, could I get a motion to adopt resolution 22.09?
Support.
It has been moved and supported. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. And finally, for water utilities, we have 11D.3, which is a request to approve a purchase order for LC United in the amount of $83,000 to paint our water tank at the WTP. Hey, Doug.
Hi, this is for repainting the water tank or reservoir located at the water treatment plant. In 2019, engineers did an inspection of it, recommended that the outside be cleaned and then repainted. And then there are also a few other repairs to the tank that are being recommended, and stuff, they're required by Eagle that they be done to basically bring the tank to within Eagle standards. So it was put out for bid. LC United was the low bid at $83,000. The $83,000 for the painting and then the engineering administration for this project does put it over what was put in the budget this year of $100,000 by $3,500. That would just be transferred back from the repair and replacement fund back into to cover that cost.
Thank you, Doug. So this doesn't require a budget adjustment if you're just moving from the fund balance?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions, Roger?
How big is this tank?
That's a 250,000 gallon tank.
83,000 seems like a lot of money. Like, it doesn't
It's
cost that
actually
much to paint a house.
40,000 for painting and the rest are repairs to it.
Okay. That makes me feel better.
Yeah, we did go out to bid.
Yeah. Yeah, I trust you. It just seems, that's a big number for painting, like,
Well, you gotta remember that, when they clean the outside, they have to capture the paint that comes off of it too, so that's, part of it. But like I say, of the total cost, only 40,000 is painting, the rest are repairs.
So I have a question. So why do we let it go so long that we have so many repairs when we have these inspected and repainted?
They're inspected every
So many.
4 to 5 years. I was not over the water plant for the previous inspection, so I don't know what was in that inspection would be 10 years ago. This was identified in 2019. It was budgeted for 2021. We pushed it back to 2022 budget to get the painting and the repairs done.
So how often did you say it's inspected?
They're inspected every, I'm gonna say 5 to 8 years.
Okay,
Because
but
we
you just
inspect.
said you weren't there 10 years ago when it was inspected.
I was not over the water system. I was only over the sewer system 10 years
Okay.
ago.
So 10 years ago it was inspected.
It was inspected in 2019, and I would have to look, but I took over in
Prior to
2015.
that.
Prior to that, I was not.
Okay.
I
My
think-
years weren't
I think
calculating.
that
did-
treatment plant,
but the-
that tank was put in what year? Because that's fairly,
That was put in when the old lime softening plant was
Yeah.
there. I would have to look at my paperwork, but it's quite, I say quite old, it's probably 30 years old.
yeah.
Probably.
The joys of living in Michigan with our winters that just destroy paint.
So
Yeah,
Typical-
it just seems like it should be caught before we have such a repair amount.
one of the repairs that without looking through the documents, is replacement or installation of a mud valve in the bottom of the tank. Mud valve is to be able to get rid of the sediment in the bottom. That's an Eagle standard. 5 years ago, they didn't recommend mud valves. Now they're recommending mud valves in water tanks. So there's changes in standards as inspections are get done, then they recommend, they be brought up to these requirements, these standards. So, there are requirements on the tanks that do change. They get implemented when we do
And
work
I
on it.
get that if there's changes, yes.
So, and then just as a note, what I was told as standards for painting, typically the interior painting lasts anywhere from 25 to 30 years. Exterior painting can be 18 to 20 years, maybe a little bit more, depending on, location, but the outside gets painted more frequently than the inside, just because of the environment and sunlight degradation on the paint.
Sure.
I also see what cathode protection system, which that just gotta get replaced no matter what every so often.
Well,
That's
and-
20K of the bill here
Years ago, that was not recommended for tanks.
to replace the
Now it's
cathodes.
for cathode protection. Now it's being recommended. So, a few years ago, when we painted Hooker Water Tower, that did not have cathode protection. That was installed in there. Now it was recommended for installation in this tank. The report that was done last fall on the water tower, western water tower, that does not have the cathode protection. It will be recommended when that comes up for painting and repairs in another 1 to 2 years, that it be installed then at that time. The engineers, they don't recommend doing it immediately because it can be tied in with the painting, and they feel that it actually saves costs for, instead of having a contractor mobilize and come out, at different times, put it all in one contract, one purchase.
And if I understand cathode protection, that's to help prevent corrosion and dissimilar metal corrosion, so it's
Correct.
something why we're doing it to help prevent it from failing quicker.
Okay. Thank you, Doug.
Any other questions for Doug? Okay. Seeing none, could I get a motion, please, to approve the purchase order in the amount of $83,000?
So moved.
It has been moved and supported. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thanks, Doug.
Thank you.
Come on up, Doug. Next, we have 11E, which is our Public Works. Under 11E.1, we have a request to approve the Padgham Field rules and regulations.
Sure, real short. Last fall in November, MDOT Aero was on site at the airport and did their regular inspection. One item that they noted we were deficient on was rules and regulations being posted. We looked around the area, we couldn't find any, at the site anyway. So staff developed some, I think, based on other airports. They were approved recently, last week, Monday, at the airport board meeting. Now we're asking the city council to approve them.
Thanks, Doug. Council, did you have any questions over the rules that we saw in our reports or in our packet? Nope, seeing none. Could I get a motion, please, to approve the Padgham Field rules and regulations?
Support.
It has been moved and supported. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. And next, we have 11E.2, which is a request to approve our Second Street Bridge project and a budget adjustment.
You got that one?
Sure, I'll get this started. Go to the next slide for me. So, a brief history. The Second Street Bridge was slated to be repaired in 2021. As you can see on the screen in the table that was in the report. In 19, so 2 years prior to that, DPW staff put together a estimate on what it would take to do the deck work and replace the road between M89 and the Second Street Bridge. That came in at $847,090. Then last fall, Bill Bacher submitted a bid amongst with several other companies, but they were the lower bid, for $1,054,555. So about $2 million more, or $200,000 more than where our estimate was. Talking with MDOT and talking with our engineer, it was our understanding that one of the reasons the prices were up were, material was up, but also this was a late fall construction, and we thought, wow, they're gonna be rushed. And I think we discussed this with council. And so we made a decision, a calculated decision, to hold off and do the project in the spring. And so we went back out for bid with MDOT. So MDOT oversees the whole bidding process. And now the total project is $1,251,196.75. So it grew approximately another $200,000. We're at a crossroads, is where we are, and I think I mentioned that in my report this, to council. That decision has to be made. We do have money in the fund balance to cover this project. That, however, is gonna affect the other projects coming down the pipeline, like the streetscape. Councilmember Redding requested the full bridge report, which I, shared with, Councilmember Redding and the entire council, instead of just the one page, saying the deck is a high priority, so you can look at the pictures and see everything. And so I think what needs to happen now is council needs to either greenlight this project or don't greenlight this project. If you don't greenlight the project, we're not really at square one. We are underwater on this bridge because the deck is a high priority. We have a $375,000 small urban grant assigned to this that we have to use this year, or we will lose it. We can't reassign that grant elsewhere, to the best of our knowledge. And we've kind of done our whole downtown streetscape project and traffic analysis with this bridge being one way in. You take that one way in, you take out that one leg going into this downtown, it's like a domino. It may affect other parts, and we just don't know those answers. And we have to let MDOT know by February 9th, which was 6 days ago. But MDOT's giving us till this week to give them an answer. And I think it really needs to be a dialogue amongst council.
Doug, did you have anything else to add, or did
The only thing
Joel
I'd like to add
summarize
is this
that?
one time we did get just the one bid. Millbarker was the lone bid that MDOT received versus last August. I think we received 4. But I agree, now's the time to do it. Based on the inspection that was done recently by Scott Engineering, I mean, they strongly suggested that this work be done. It's a substructure, taking out the grates, taking out the wood beams underneath it that are bad. So we need to do it.
So could you just clarify for me, Doug, this estimate is just the decking, or is it the painting? And, I mean, I saw the pictures, like, with the rusted,
There's some work on the handrails, and then it's a substructure and superstructure below that. It's not anything up above where the
Okay.
lights are.
so that's, I was hoping that it was for all of the work,
So we're.
not just the
And
deck,
it's
okay.
all of Second Street. It's
Yes.
redoing all of Second Street from Cedar or Marshall to the bridge.
Do we have an estimate on the life expectancy of this work? Like how much longer would it be until we had to do more work on the bridge?
I don't, Tony, do you?
No, I mean, there is more work that needs to be done beyond what you're seeing here. This is just, as Doug said, to address everything below. There is structural steel work that needs to be done above that eventually here pretty soon.
And I haven't seen or received an estimate on it. We can always ask. I'm glad to send an email to the engineer that inspected it. Ask if he could put together a rough estimate to get that work done.
I think that could be helpful to understand. If we've got to put another 2 million into this in 2 or 3 years or shut it down, then that's,
Well,
I mean, I don't know. I have no idea. I'm looking to you guys for but that comes to mind,
My concern is saying if it goes pedestrian, that doesn't necessarily absolve us of the cost. We're gonna have to keep and maintain it because it's still a bridge and you can't just let it rot away.
Do we have an estimate on the cost for pedestrian?
Because either way, we gotta paint it again, we gotta do all those type of things. It's not going away.
And we had discussed that at our last strategic planning. Tony had brought some information for us, and then we decided that that was not the way that we wanted to go, so I'm not sure. Do you remember what any of those?
I'm gonna see if I can pull up that
Okay.
presentation I put together for you all in terms of replacement costs and all that right now.
Okay. Did anyone else have any questions?
Other concern, of course, I have is we put in, that the community has put in a lot of money to restore that bridge back when it was restored. And it was restored for car traffic, and there's a nice monument there that states community involvement in it. Maybe for the other parts in the future, maybe we can see if the community wants to help with the pedestrian walkway and do something there, but I think work has to be done, and it's not gonna get any cheaper. The rate of inflation ain't going down anytime soon, so the delay that we had here didn't help us because of inflation, and everything just went up in cost. And it's not going down, so I don't think we should kick the ball again and hope for it to go down, because I don't think it is.
Roger, did you have a question?
No, I agree with what Peter just said, and my thought as we're talking about this goes back to what Teresa just said about the water tower, or the holding tank, that if we put things off, it's just gonna cost more down the road, so we've gotta, I mean, it kills me to pay an extra $400,000 for this, but if we don't, it's just gonna get more expensive, and we can't let it deteriorate. I think we need it for the downtown plan, we need it because, like Peter just said, people put a lot of effort into restoring it and getting it back up, and it's a big part of our city. It's on our logo, for goodness sake. So I think we have to do it.
And you mentioned this would impact the streetscape. I mean, what are we looking at as far as the impact to that? Tracy?
We're gonna have to go find a few $100,000 more. I mean,
You
things
can do
were,
that, Joel.
what?
You're good, you can do it.
Thank you, Dave, for your vote of confidence.
I'm Roger. by the
Roger,
way.
man,
Have we met?
we have met. I apologize. Thank you, Roger, for your vote of confidence. That's the impact. I mean, every time something's more here, you know, something else, it gets squeezed somewhere else. So,
Tracy, I am noticing your body language over there. Do you have any input?
It just, you know, concerns me, like you say, about the water tanks and everything. You know, you talk about the park benches and all that, all those things have to be replaced as well, and I just am trying to figure out how to make the budget work. So, I mean, and a lot of these things are so far in the works that you can't undo it. But we can't do the bridge, the downtown, the roundabout, or the realignment for us, or whatever. There's the cost for us in that, and it just gives me anxiety a little bit.
So this is like a really big decision, and we're at a pretty important point here in the life cycle of this bridge, right? Like when I was growing up in America, bridges didn't collapse ever. And I don't know that that's true anymore. And I don't want to be an alarmist here, but like there are people's lives that could be at stake here. So this is a big one. And I don't know that I want to rush into this just because we're afraid that it's going to cost us more later. Like it feels like we kind of need to make sure we're exploring options in an open-minded way, and I don't think it makes sense for us to just stay committed to what we decided a year ago when we thought things would be different now. So I guess I'm just asking for, like, should we take a minute to consider what all our options are and what the ramifications are? Just the simple questions I just asked, I'd feel much more comfortable if I started getting some information like that so I can really understand what's going on here, just because this is such a big one.
MDOT needs the information.
5 days
Needed
ago.
it.
Yeah,
5 days
MDOT
ago.
wanted it last week so they could take it to the administrative board for their approval. By us not getting it to them last week, by the 9th, I think it was, when they wanted it, it's gonna delay their approval, which is gonna delay the contractor getting any documents in, the bid bonds and whatever, getting the contract signed, and then starting the work.
And I think it's too bad that we got to this point where we've been given now an ultimatum with no time to decide, but I didn't put us in that situation. So I'm just saying, now that we're here and we're being asked to make a big decision, I mean, to me, it's like, if we had to shut the bridge down for a month to figure this out, to be honest, that would be probably a better, wiser thing to do than to rush into something without good information. Tell me I'm wrong here.
But I don't
So-
think that's not the issue.
No.
The issue is not shutting the bridge down. The issue is that if MDOT needs our answer, and if we can't give them an answer, we're
That
gonna lose it.
It
jeopardizes
gets
the
pushed back
funding.
out,
So
and then
on
costs are gonna
Dave's
rise again.
comments, why was this not brought to us on the last meeting?
MDOT received bids on Friday, February 4th.
Well, it's a 200,000 increase, from the first bidding, right? August, 1.05, 1.25, or 200,000 increase. We're also gonna lose our additional free money. I don't know why this thing's like, we're gonna lose that additional funding unless if there's some other funding that we foresee or that we know of that's available.
We have infrastructure funding. I mean, that bill just went, the federal infrastructure, but how we tap into that or anything when it's available, I don't even know if
Could that
the
be more?
federal government knows.
Like, what's our streetscape plan for when are we gonna be actually doing it? Could we be tapping into that at that point? Stuff can change down the road, and that's the thing is, we're talking about, this is causing the streetscape not to happen, not necessarily. We also have the roundabout. You could save a little money if we did do the roundabout. We got those choices to make. But we don't know where additional federal or state funding may come also for our streetscape. And I don't want to give up $300,000, almost $400,000, and hope that we can get it to cost less, because I don't think it's ever going to cost less. So we have to make the decision whether we're going to do it or not. And the pedestrian bridge, I remember it was a cost savings, but it's still going to have a continual cost of the city. You got to paint it and maintain it, so.
Is it worth considering the value of making it into a pedestrian bridge? Like, really take a minute just to explore that idea? I mean,
We've had,
sure. But we've got new information right now, right? And I guess for me, I'm very curious to understand what the long-term cost of keeping it an automobile bridge versus a pedestrian bridge would be. In my mind, making it a pedestrian bridge doesn't diminish the investment that was made before. It doesn't make it less of a bridge. It doesn't make it less iconic or less of a placemaking item. It may actually improve its historical value, improve its lifespan, improve it as a placemaking feature of our city. It just feels like not considering that because we talked about it already. Like,
When it was
might be
brought
worth
up,
opening.
it was kind of rejected, like, people didn't like that idea when because we had like three options, and I kind of thought a pedestrian bridge would be cool, but the vast majority of people that responded said they didn't like that idea. They
Who
didn't want to go.
responded? I just saw council. I mean, I remember council talking about it.
It's when
Did
we
have-
were down in the bottom of the Griswold, and we did we had all of the charrettes.
Some of those charrettes. I'm going to real quick open this up to the public. I see that we've got a couple people here. If anyone would like to come up and share your thoughts. Okay, come on up.
Just
Uh,
to,
Yeah, and I'm going to have you just state your name and your
Raise your
address, please. Thank you.
215 Marshall, just to say to Mr. Redding, I believe you were on council when this was brought up a couple of years ago, so dragging your feet and saying that you haven't heard, I've heard about this, and I'm not even on city council. So it's quite frustrating sitting back there listening to you saying, well, can we open up the options? You're quite hesitant to moving on it. You have to move on it. You're losing money here. You were on council, and I know you were. I've been here since your beginning. So for you to say that this is all brand new to you, I'm kind of upset about that.
Thank you. Was there any other comment? Okay. So what we need to do at this point is we need to get a motion on the floor and then determine which way it's going to go. So were there any other questions before we do that? No? Okay. Could I get a motion, please, to approve the Second Street Bridge project and budget adjustment?
So I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 2210?
Nope,
No? That's
just
not it?
the Second Street
Oh,
Bridge
sorry,
project.
I'm sorry, I skipped
That's okay,
ahead.
not a
Sorry.
problem.
So yes, I will make a motion.
Can I get a support?
I support.
Is there any further discussion before this goes to a vote? Any discussion?
I mean, I do think it's worth understanding options. I'm not trying to kick the can down the road. I mean, again, it's a big thing. It's not about, it's just about understanding everything that's in front of us today things were different a couple years ago. We got a different set of data in front of us at that time. Yeah, I just feel it's necessary to offer up the possibility that we get some information before we rush into this.
Is there anything further? Thanks, Dave. Okay. All those in favor of approving the Second Street Bridge project signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no.
No.
Motion carries. Next up, we have 11F, City Manager and City Clerk. 11F.1 is a request to adopt Resolution 22.10, approving the M40 M89 Hubbard Roundabout Concept Design. Staff?
So, following up on the discussion from your January meeting when MDOT was here, at that study session, Thomas Saban went over a report that he provided for council that's in your packet again for your review, and then made it clear that city council needs to make a determination whether or not they would support a roundabout at this location. So to give you the history, MDOT is planning on resurfacing M89 from 26th Street north to 222. So that, in the city limits, that's Marshall and Cedar. The city of Allegan, for the past decade or so, has talked about realigning Hubbard Street and making it a two-way entrance with M40. Starting in 2020, we started getting into serious conversations with MDOT about how that realignment would work. We looked at several design options. The only option that improves traffic operation as well as increases safety is the design you see on your screen right now, which is inserting a roundabout. This roundabout was designed by traffic engineers. They did traffic modeling. They looked at spacing between this intersection and the light to the north. They looked at truck movement in this area, as well as pedestrian movement in this area through the lens of this roundabout and its operations. Why don't you open up the plan for me, my friend? The realignment design that the city council was starting with back in the mid-2000s is not a design that MDOT will be supportive of, as they discussed at the last meetings. They also looked at if they made Ely, right out and right in only. That also is not a design that they would be supportive of. So, I don't know how that happened either, my friend. That's the one. There we go. Okay, I'll take it from here. Thank you. So I just want to spend 2 seconds with council and just kind of go over where they were and the work that's been put into this. And so I'm just going to hit some highlights of the report from MDOT, okay? Again, it states that since 2020, city staff, our engineer of record, which is Abin Marsh, and MDOT engineers have been working regularly on different concepts in this area. We're getting to the point where we need to come to a decision if we're going to be supportive of a roundabout or not. A roundabout is the option that we need to get a gateway into the downtown, or just the current alignment we have now is what we will always have. In preparation of this work, the city did acquire several structures here and here and had them removed and demolished so we could get the alignment. This is the first alignment that we wanted to look at. However, we did not get good level of service operations in this area. This also included what if we did an island at Ely and only allowed people to make, a right turn out coming into Ely. This shows the difficulty of a truck making that movement, because a truck coming down Ely, which is a primary county road in the township, would take up all three of these lanes as it works its way into this area. This shows the roundabout design with what will be the city's responsibility. The red shaded area, we would have to pay for this work. Everything else, MDOT would cover. This is what the final layout would look like. We did reach out to MDOT today. They are still supportive of this direction. 3 of the 5 legs are state trunk lines, roads controlled by MDOT. This would be a 2024 project, is what the plan will be. And this will get us our gateway into our downtown. And so we put together a resolution for council to consider. That would be 2210. Is this resolution that highlights both the history of where the city has been, as well as, support for this design.
Joel, what is the cost that the city's responsible for?
So the cost that we have right now, based on today's numbers with a 3%, with a forward inflation thing, maybe I can just,
Is that the 709,000?
yes. And that went way too zoomy again. But yeah. So we're at 7 and 9 plus the 70, so we're just under 800,000, where the total project is, pushing 3 million. So it's a significant reduction from where we were, 2 months ago, when we had the first meeting with MDOT in December.
Mike, did you have another question?
No, it just seems that money's come up being an issue, and so, maybe just the repave is the way to go now, and we have some other big projects that have to get done, and, if it's not broke, why should we spend that kind of money? I mean, if it was a $20 bill, I'd throw that in myself and call it done, but it's not. It's darn close to $1 million, so.
So I would offer, I hear what you're saying. One thing I would offer is, since the early 2000s, so previous councils have made the constant decision of converting Hubbard to a 2-way street. That every single council that sat either at the old, tables at the Griswold or in, this location has said, hey, we want Hubbard to be a 2-way street. We want that to be the main.
And that was for a realignment, not
Correct.
for a roundabout.
We want that to be the main gateway. I do not believe you'll be able, if you just say, hey, let MDOT just do your resurface, we'll deal with the realignment down the road. In a way, you're walking away from 20 years of work. Why were properties secured? Why were buildings demolished? That investment. And just, the vision that was created to make that the gateway. I mean, it's a decision to be made. It's a very, I would say MDOT coming in and picking up the majority of the cost, including the work on Ely Street and Hubbard on the west side of M89, M40. I don't know if we'll ever get this the city of Allegan will ever get this kind of opportunity again. And those are just all factors to consider as you have this discussion.
I would also add, in addition to that, the section that we have to pay for, we would have to pay for anyways. When we do the downtown, I mean, those roads are bad anyways, so we're gonna have to redo those roads that are marked ours to pay for anyways. So we are gonna have most of that cost anyways, and like Peter said, it's not gonna get any cheaper.
Sorry about my mic there. Were there any other questions for staff right now?
Just a comment that the rate of inflation there is kind of a joke at current rates, but we'll see where it goes in 3 years. But the only comment I would have is if we go this way, I would implore city staff to look for any possible other funding that can help contribute to this, as well as our other projects through infrastructure plans. And I'm hoping that there's something that can come about on it.
Coming up, Doug.
We were made aware of recently, if I may.
No, absolutely. Come on.
Was a highway safety plan, HSIP, right? Right. It's for safety improvements at intersections. We're working with Marsh Engineering to apply for that grant, which would be, timing is great because that would be for the 2024 construction season. And I forget the dollar amount on that. Do you recall offhand? 300 and 400?
Yeah, it's like 375,000
Yeah, so that would offset some of our expenses. If we're successful, it is a competitive grant. But the
Thank you
good-
for that information, Doug and
Yeah,
Tony.
but the good part is we're working with MDOT on the MDOT project, so hopefully that gives us a little plus, a few more pluses.
Okay,
But
all right. Thank you. Once again, I'm going to invite the public up. This is a pretty important decision. So I know we heard from you earlier, Brady. Is there anything else? I mean, hearing some of this, is there anything else that you have questions about or seeing some of the graphs?
No, you guys pretty much covered most of it.
Okay,
They did a model of it, I guess, so they feel that there's not gonna be any backups between there and the light.
yeah, what they explained is that light is triggered, so it'll trigger it to change if it gets backed up too much. But did you have anything, Lydia?
My personal opinion, I'm not for the roundabout. I do live in Marshall. I do have littles. We like to go bike riding, and I don't see how it's gonna be safe for me on a bike during summertime to go through a roundabout when I have a light at the intersection where I can safely cross myself and three littles. A roundabout is just gonna be a hassle. As far as safe walking, I don't like walking down, so I'll avoid that area completely because there aren't any sidewalks. So you can't say safe walking is one of the gestures in there because there aren't any safe sidewalks to walk on.
Could you put up that graphic with the sidewalks? No, the one with the red,
There aren't any current sidewalks.
right.
So currently I can't. But if we were to have a intersection, just redo it, not a roundabout, but change the way, the layout of the streets, that would make it safer for me and my children to go across. So that's one of the hardships they have there.
Okay. And I can just let you know, like, the big concern is Ely Street right there, with the traffic issues at Ely. If you do a realignment, you're actually moving the light closer, so that hinders it even more. And that's why we got to this roundabout.
Right. But
So,
if there's a light there,
right.
everyone sees, okay, we wait longer, which is fine, because then it's safer to cross with the lights, ride on one side, and I got my safe crosswalk.
Okay.
And now it's like, you're gonna do a roundabout, how are we supposed to get anywhere? If I'm
Yeah.
going up to the hospital on my bike,
So if you, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but if you look up here, like these red lines, those would be, and this is all concept. Let's be really clear. This is concept. It could change, but, and most likely will in some degrees. That's where sidewalks would be placed. And so you've got like a crosswalk coming over, but,
And you're crossing a smaller area of road each
depends on
time.
what side of the road I'm on.
Well, because this was a big concern for me, because we're walkers, and we used to actually live, we used to live across the side, so we'd have to make the cross over the 4 lanes, and it's a rough place to cross. And so my big concern was people being able to cross safely, but you actually are crossing smaller areas of road, so you're less time on the pavement. It actually is a safer, it's been proven to be safer for pedestrians.
Discussion with the public.
And my question to the city council is, have you talked to any truckers, any bus drivers to see how they feel? Because I've done my due diligence and I've talked to bus drivers, truckers, and a roundabout in that area is not feasible. Right now, bus drivers have a hard time in the roundabouts that are in the local area. So it's like, have you done your due diligence as city council to actually get out?
We have.
yeah.
We
And actually, this was a concern. I mean, my dad is an over-the-road truck driver, so is my brother. So this was a huge concern for me, and I think Peter actually brought up like the wide loads that come through, the mobile, the modular homes that come through. MDOT has assured us that with the size of this roundabout, they should have no problem. And
MDOT has also reassured different areas, like in Holland, up on that bridge, that their streetscape was great, and you drive down in the Holland area, and it's not. So
Okay.
MDOT can give you all the counsel they want, and they can reassure you. But what guarantee do we have?
Yep.
Are there any ramifications? Are we gonna hold them accountable? If they don't-
well, it's their road, so, yeah, at that point. But thank you very much for your guys' comments, appreciate it. So at this point, guys, we have a resolution that we need to make a motion for, and then we'll go from there.
So now I will make a motion to accept Resolution 22.10.
Thank you, Roger.
I support it.
It has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion, council, before we take this to a vote? Bill, Dave, anything to add?
I feel like this is a good design,
Okay,
a lot of sense.
okay. All right, so all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no.
No.
Motion carries 5-2. Okay, moving on. We have 11F.2, which is a request to approve the 211.5 Trowbridge lease agreement with Hoard of Dragons Hobbies and Games. Staff.
Okay, we've had a request from Hoard of Dragon Hobbies and Games to rent out the back portion of the Regent Theater, also known as 211.5 Trowbridge Street. There, in your report was a copy of the lease. It is a one-year lease, $500 per month is what they will pay the city. Staff is recommending that you adopt this.
Thank you. Council, were there any questions for staff regarding this lease? Okay, see, go ahead.
You know when the lease takes effect? When, did
Think
we
it was-
assign a date?
So in the letter they submitted, they would like the lease to start April 1st,
Okay,
and they would be open May 1st. So they have 1 month to get it, set up.
okay. Is it worth considering, like, the pinball had been there and been successful, and it's a community organization. Should we, find out what their estimated timeline is to finding a new location, or should we give them any sort of leeway, or just as an organization?
Yeah, Matt had just written us an email saying that he's got some possible temporary locations available. I'm not sure what timeline is, but he was at that meeting and heard.
But he knows the timeline from that.
Okay, any other questions, council? Seeing none, could I get a motion to approve the lease agreement with Hoard of Dragons? Hoard of the Dragons. Thank you, Bill. Could I get a support? Thanks, Roger. It has been moved and supported. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next, we have 11F.3, which is a request to approve the 2022 Allegan County Fair Parade, concerts, noise exemptions, and their signage. Staff?
Sure, sorry about that. This is an annual request from the Allegan County Fair. They request, permission to have the fair parade in the downtown. They request to put signage around the city, directing people to the fairgrounds. They request, I believe, up to 6 concerts outside the fair dates, just in case they can, get a touring concert through town. And they would like the exemption from what they call our noise ordinance. Staff is recommending approval.
Thank you, Joel. Any questions, council?
I think the only thing I saw was they're adding on maybe concerts May through September. I don't know if they do that normally, but it's not just the fair time that these noise ordinances being waived for,
That's what they're asking for.
Yeah, just in case they can get,
in case they can get some concerts.
yeah,
Okay.
get somebody else in. And I see that the fair parade is gonna be on a Monday again this year, so that will,
We will cross that bridge when we get to about July.
okay, awesome. Okay, could I get a motion, please, to approve the Allegan County Fair requests?
So moved.
Support.
It has been moved and supported. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Okay, so last up, we have item 13, which is communications from city manager, council, and mayor. Joel, did you have anything tonight?
I will be sending out the meeting notice for the strategic planning discussion next Wednesday. Like to thank staff for sticking around this evening and going through things. They all want to get home for Valentine's Day, so I'm going to stop right there.
Thank you. Any other city staff, did you have anything else to add tonight?
I have a reminder for council to let me know if you would like to attend Capcom. There are 2 deadlines for that. There's an early bird deadline, which does come at a lower cost if we do register by the 28th of this month. And the regular deadline is March 7th. So if you can just send me an email, I'll also email you guys in the morning, just as a reminder.
Thank you so much, Michaela. Mike, anything from you this evening?
Yeah, a couple things. I saw weekly reports come through, but I see them only sporadically. Are those weekly reports that come every week to you, but then some just get sent out?
Correct. They're weekly reports that come to me every week, and I need to do a better job of forwarding those on to council.
Okay, so we can get them all then at some point?
Correct.
Thank you. And then, I've driven by the city hall a couple times, and in the evening, the lights are all on inside, and I guess the reasoning?
Depending on the night, we do have meetings that take place. So like last week, we were here Monday night till 8:30 with HDC. Then we were here till about 9 with public spaces on Wednesday. Sometimes staff stays and works late. The chiropractor, Rocky Saunders, I believe 2 nights a week, he stays till 7. So not knowing exactly what dates. And then we also have a cleaning, Hugh Bradley is our janitor, and we have him start cleaning after 5 o'clock. So depending on the night, yeah, there's activity going
Yeah, I
on at
guess
City
I'm
Hall.
10, 11, 12, it's late, so when you drive by, every office is lit up, and
Okay.
just curious.
Take a picture with your cell phone and text it to me.
Okay,
But it's also, there are times I'm here till 11:30, 12 at night, working on stuff. So it could just be me doing work.
okay. And then, the minutes from the meetings, why does it take 2 weeks for us to get a copy of that sent out? Because I go 2 weeks when I missed the one meeting that I did before I can see what's going on with that.
Councilmember Zeter, that's been the practice since I showed up here. I actually tried to get the review of the committees off the agenda for council, and I got my hand smacked on that request. So it's always, the meeting is always shared at the next council meeting.
Okay, because
Mike, are you speaking of like our council minutes or?
yes,
Okay. I think just practices, they come with our packet.
because in the past, we would actually get them a day or so after, and then it would be approved.
I just wanted to chime in for a moment, since I do the minutes. I do have 7 days by law, to do the minutes, so sometimes, we get busy with stuff that we have to follow up on after the meeting. But they are posted immediately once I'm done. They're put on our website.
Okay. Can you email those to us then?
If you would like me to.
Yeah, we can email them, and also, all the meetings are recorded on YouTube. So they're on the city's YouTube channel. So if you really want to see tonight, you can go home tonight and, get a refresher of what was discussed.
Thanks, Mike. Did you have anything else?
No.
No? Okay. Roger? Peter?
Just one question for, how's it coming for renting the basement here?
Not good. However, the 2 lease spaces on the first floor are rented.
Yeah. Just trying to see if we can
Yep.
keep pushing that forward.
We are pushing it, and everyone we take down there goes, seriously? And we're like, there were office spaces down there before. The county news was in the basement here. financial advisors were in the basement here. I'm not sure why they won't come back. It's a much cleaner, nicer building to walk into, in my opinion, than what it was in 2018.
Teresa, anything from you tonight?
The only thing is, Tracy, I'd like to thank you for putting those descriptions down on Consumers Energy. Mike had mentioned it, and I can't believe he didn't thank you for that. So I noticed it, and I'd like to say thank you for however it got there. It was there, so thank you, and that's all.
Thanks, Teresa. Dave, anything from you?
And for me, thanks.
Bill, anything from you tonight?
No, ma'am.
All right, and nothing from me either. Just thank you all. It was a long one tonight with a lot of very difficult decisions, so I know we weighed them very carefully. But thank you. I will adjourn at 8:48.